We got to keep the action going here at the SWC group stage. Our two SCC teams have squared off. We sent the Highland Ravens to qualify to Worlds, and now we'll have two SPL teams battling for only a single spot. And all of Season 9 powering our players has been our good friends over at Alienware. So make sure you go to SMITEGame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09 to see all the great deals and offers that Alienware has for you, the fans. And you can check out all the great gear that our players have been playing at, not just here in the studio, but also in the comfort of their own homes. That way they don't have any discrepancies between what they get to practice on whenever they're scrimming and what they get to play on when they're here in the studio up against their opposition. Thank you so much to Alienware for powering us in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. I'm J-Mac. I've got Trelly joining me on the desk as we jump into our final set before going to the SMITE World Championships. Trelly, this is the last one, and for only one more spot left. And who do we have battling out? Our first SPL versus SPL matchup of the event.
Yeah, that was our last cast until Worlds, which is crazy. This is going to be our last desk until Worlds, and it's an SPL versus SPL matchup. It's going to bring everything you guys could ever want.
Yeah, Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs will be our final matchup of the group stages. We can take a look at the brackets to see what insanity has been going through the entirety of this weekend. Over in Group A, it started off with the Tartarus Titans, a 2-0 over the Ravens, a 3-1 over the Hounds. That qualifies them. Ravens, after dropping down to the lower bracket against the Tartarus Titans, will now be the team to join the Titans after a win 3-0 over the Eldritch Hounds, who found a 2-0 over the Valkyries, fell down up against the Tartarus Titans in the winners bracket, and have now lost to the Highland Ravens. So we'll have one SPL in the Titans, one SCC in the Ravens. And it's going to be a similar situation on the opposite side in Group B now as we jump over towards that bracket. But instead of the Titans, or the SPL team, I should say, being the one who have made a clean sweep their way to being the first team to qualify, it was Hex Mambo, the #1 EU SCC representatives. They 2-1 the Scarabs to start the week, 3-1 the Oni Warriors just yesterday, are the first team to qualify for the SWC. And now we have the Oni Warriors, who had a strong win over the Shabalba Storm, their heavy loss, and the Solar Scarabs with their win over the Storm. So that's the one, I guess they have two things in common. Both these teams 2-0'd the Storm, but also both these teams lost to Hex Mambo. And now, unfortunately, because of those circumstances, only one of them can go to the SMITE World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't dance with the Mambo, then I don't have a good pun for this. I thought I did, but they both, it's poetic, right? They ended up here because of the Mambo, and now they got one last dance. There we go. That's better.
Unfortunately, I wasn't here when Mambo won, because like the joke is like Mambo #5. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for any of it. I couldn't make my joke. Was Mambo didn't need to get to #5 to win. They were able to do it in 4. But hey, now with them moving on, and we have the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs facing off for our final spot at the SWC, 5 days away from this illustrious event for all of these players to compete at, for a chance to be the #1 team in Season 9 of the SMITE World Championships. And when we talk about these two teams, especially two very strong power dynamics of this squad, the Solar Scarabs have really made a massive turnaround, bringing Hurriwind over onto this team. He has really been able to transform this squad from the corpse that it was before. He's been able to bring some life back into this team. The Oni Warriors have had a bit of a struggling season, have been able to find some successes in some of these playoff tournaments and situations, Trelly, but now both of these teams face potential elimination, as only one of them can move on. And the good news is that we get to talk to both the supports, NeilMah and Hurriwind, standing by for our pregame interview with Dave.
All right, fellas, we had some fists flying over here just a moment ago. Yeah, all right, on the air punch. Hurriwind threw a high leg kick. I didn't realize your leg could go that high. It was actually very impressive. Neil, you could use some work on your flexibility over there. I'm sorry. Fellas, we've reached the end of the line here during the SMITE World Championship group stages. I don't know, the desk was talking about mamboing, dancing, something like that. The unfortunate reality, two teams that fell prey to Hex Mambo here this weekend. Neil, do you think you guys or the Solar Scarabs got it worse from Hex Mambo earlier on?
I mean, L's and L's, you got to take it on the chin. What's the difference?
That's so diplomatic from Neil. How about you, Hurriwind? Same idea?
No, they got it way worse. They got smoked. I mean, they got to see him play us too, so you'd think they probably would have done a bit better.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And yours was a best of 5. I don't know, Neil. All right, so two support players. Actually has nothing to do with the set really, but two friends of Agro's. Now that you've gotten some time both to play Maui, do you have any on-stream feedback for Ryan's first God? Either of you feeling strongly?
I mean, he's really fun to play, but I've talked to him a bunch about this. There's some things that could still be improved on. Always room for growth is what I'll say.
And you've given him like friendly feedback, nothing mean, nothing harsh, I'm sure. Neil, anything for your buddy there, Ryan, on his first God?
You'll get him next time, buddy.
Oh no, so you're not playing any Maui today, is what I gather. All right, look, you guys on Oni Homies, respect for you, and different squad for you, Hurriwind, in the SPL play-in tournament earlier on this year. We're all battling it out, and we now make it here, kind of end of the line. Does it feel poetic to you in a way, Hurry, that it's all kind of come full circle, and you guys versus the Oni Warriors at the end?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it poetic.
Yeah, probably not.
It's been a trudge, I think, for both of our teams in a lot of ways. So this is kind of the culmination of a lot of struggle for both teams here.
Neil, I mean, honestly, on a similar line, you guys start your year with a play-in tournament to the SPL. Now you're ending your year with a play-in tournament to the SMITE World Championship. Do you feel like what's the word when you put hot metal in water and it makes it harder to break? Do you feel like you've done that with your team?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is right where I want to be every time, man. Got to take the hardest path, but, the path less traveled gives you greater fruits for your labors. That's what they say.
Is that what they say? I don't know who they is, but I want to meet him one day. Final thoughts from you here, Hurriwind. NeilMah across the way. Say Game 5. You guys 1v1. You pulling any punches, looking across the aisle, or you hammering it home?
I'm getting into it. I'm getting into it in one way or another. That's for sure.
Any pulled punches from you here, Neil?
I don't know how to throw a punch.
You don't know how to throw a punch. You know how to throw a kick, though.
No, I'm not a fighter.
You're a lover, not a fighter. You heard it here first. Fellas, best of luck. Excited for this one. Yeah, handshakes. Whoa. There we go, handshakes. All right, Bass to the desk to start this one off.
Some handshakes and some playfulness between the supports of these two squads. And again, both of them facing for the only team left. Only one opportunity for one of these teams to make it through there. It's only going to be either the Oni Warriors or the Solar Scarabs. And we got to talk about the history that these two teams have had. And I think it's actually great that Dave brings it up in that pregame interview. You go all the way back to the beginning of the season, Trelly. Both of these squads, or at least for those two players specifically, both those players were vying for a chance to get back into the SPL in the qualifiers. The Oni Homies obviously make their way in with the Oni Warriors. Hurriwind on the Duck squad, playing with Ducky and Snoopy at that time. Didn't quite make the cut, and then had to go through the SCC, and eventually we see a couple of these players get pulled back in. We see Hurriwind and Snoopy make the rotation in. Snoopy, not in the lane that he was playing at least at the beginning of the year, moves from the ADC in towards the mid. It's had a pretty decent transition through, but I think that's where maybe some of the growing pains for me, at least watching this team, is seeing how Snoopy has been able to develop himself in that mid role compared to when you look across the way. I mean, you've got a fully fleshed out mid laner for the Oni Warriors.
I mean, that's true. I think that Snoopy's a player that's been around for a while. He's played multiple roles, so it might have been a difficult transition at first, but he really has come to his own. I can tell he feels at home watching some of these matchups. But as you said before, both of these teams have lost to X-Mambo. They're both coming off an L, and they have one last shot to make it to the SMITE World Championship. So doing the bare minimum is not going to be the case. You got to go above and beyond. There can be very little mistakes made, and I'm thinking confidence is going to be number one. I mean, mindset above all, and I'm hoping they both bring it.
Well, let's see if these teams do bring that level of confidence they need as we jump into the picks and bans for game number 1, our final best of 5 before the SMITE World Championship kicks off this coming Friday, just 5 days away at the Esports Arena in Arlington, Texas, where we'll have 8 of the best teams of players in the world competing to be the number 1 for Season 9. As the picks and bans do start up, Oni Warriors will take a couple of shots across the map here. One at Snoopy's Vulcan, making sure to ban that one away, as that's been a crucial pick for Snoopy throughout his entire career, whether he was playing mid or whether he was playing Hunter role. That Vulcan has always been something he's gone towards. And since NeilMah showed no interest in playing the Maui, ends up banning that one away, so Hurriwind doesn't have the opportunity to do so either.
That means the Oni Warriors have their shot at first pick here. I would think, something that has been highly prioritized was the Cernunnos. That's been a pick that I think most teams have liked, and they will grab that one immediately. With Ishtar taken away, it's almost a no-brainer. You kind of have to go for it. But what will the Scarabs grab in return? It could just be, the Hades. It has been banned away from Scary D multiple times, and it looks like not valuing too much that Hades, they're going to grab for themselves. And Scary D has had fantastic performances on this character. They don't really have to grab an ADC here because the Oni Warriors aren't going to prioritize a second one just yet. If Dardez does want to go double ADC, they usually pick it later, but it looks like they just want to make sure to get that Rama immediately for Netrioid, and probably for good reason. He's had some hard carry pop-off performances on this pick as well.
Yeah, make sure that Stewart can get something rolling over on that side lane, get one of those top picks, allow it. So a couple of the side laners now picked up for the Solar Scarabs. That opens up Bellona for the Oni Warriors to try and face off against this Hades. Not the funnest of lane matchups for a Bellona, but one that should be able to at least hold its own. And then Morgan, we've only seen it one time. That was by the Tartarus Titans. Paul played that one over in the mid-roll. This early in the draft, I mean, Charlie, how do you kind of feel about at least the early look at transformation targets for the Morgan and maybe just kind of the early composition built around it so far?
I actually like early picking the Morgan if you are confident in your play on it, which we know that Dardez is, because it then deters a few select picks for the Solar Scarabs, right? You know that Sam for Soccer likes things like the Susanoo every once in a while. You almost don't want to go to that because you're giving a great transformation over to Dardez. You want to force him into picks that aren't going to be good transformations, so it acts as a pseudo-ban in that regard. And then the Oni Warriors, they don't have any great transformations locked in just yet, but you got to imagine the Pele could be something they're looking towards. QvoFred is like that god a lot. Now that Najah and Daji are taken away, that could be his next go-to. The Lancelot comes to mind as well as a good transformation just in case the Oni Warriors want to look towards that. But they also can ban away these bad transformations, right? You're not turning into Mercury, so the Oni Warriors can just ban that away. Sam for Soccer does not get that opportunity this game. And I think because they picked the Morgan so early, they can afford to do things like that.
With Terra for the Solar Scarabs rounds out the top three. Ymir and Lancelot banned away by the Solar Scarabs. Mercury for the Oni Warriors. And looking at the history of these two teams in just this season so far, Charlie, not a single time have the Solar Scarabs been able to come out on top of the Oni Warriors. It's either been a 2-1 for the majority, so the sets have typically been going long against these two teams, but the Oni Warriors have always come out on top in Season 9. Could this be the first opportunity for the Solar Scarabs to find a win against the Oni Warriors in match play? Could this be the opening that the Solar Scarabs have been needing, and what a crucial time it could come at to find their first win against the Oni Warriors in Season 9 by finding it in the last match before the SMITE World Championships. One final ban for the Oni Warriors, taking their time, going for a shot maybe at Sam for Soccer, and they will do so. Mercury and Pele taken off the table.
I'm amazed that number one, they banned the Pele, and number two, the Hunbats gets locked in so abruptly. I love this combo. The Hades Hunbats combo is so deadly because you're burning beads for each other. You're both always working in tandem trying to set up. But you also give that Hunbats transformation over to Dardez, which can be so annoying to deal with if you find any opportunity to stealth into the back line and then find a massive Fear No Evil on the side of the Oni Warriors. QvoFred's God pick is still up for grabs. The Raven is something that he goes to in situations like this where he's been banned out a heavy bit. I don't think that the Nemesis is something he's been leaning on as of recent. It was a pick that he liked at the beginning of the season, but he sort of went away from things like that. But also, you got to think, what is NeilMah going to go to? I mean, the Terra is already taken off the board. The Ymir was banned away, and the Maui. There's a couple gods that come to mind that would be good for him, but you know, we saw some Sylvanus earlier on in the tournament. That's not going to be something that I would prioritize here, especially into the Hades and the Hunbats combo. You're going to need CC immunity for sure. That's what I would prioritize.
Did something happen to Umoja that I'm unaware of, Trelly? Because Umoja throughout the entire regular season to the SCC qualifier rounds, playoffs, was the #1 pick ban god out of the support role. But we've come into this tournament seeing like under a 20% ban rate, only a single pick to my knowledge out there. It just feels like this god has fallen to the wayside for these pros.
In my opinion, Umoja is still fantastic, first of all, but it's very hit or miss. So if you're not making use out of that ultimate, and this is a very high-stakes situation, you don't want to put it all on a high skill cap god like this. NeilMah can certainly play it. We know Hurriwind can play it, but you're going home if you mess up, right? So you might as well play a Terra who can get 2 different dashes set up for the team, still has that healing. I think it's just a high-stakes situation where you don't want to put all of your pressure on making sure you're making use out of the River's Rebuke. It's a massive cooldown.
Well, in response, no Umoja will be a Fafnir for NeilMah on the Oni Warriors, something that he's gone to many a times in the past with a decent composition to do so. Couple that with the Nemesis, so some decent shred onto a single target, but also some good objective burn for the Oni Warriors now. Final pick for the Solar Scarabs has got to be for the mid lane for Snoopy, as we await to see what selection goes his way. Has only taken 2 bans technically. I mean, a Vulcan ban at the beginning and then a Morgan pickup. But Snoopy's gonna be Snoopy. You can take the Hunter out of the lane, but you can't take it out of the Hunter himself. You can take the Hunter out of the 80 carry role, but you can't take the... I don't know where I was going with this one. I messed up entirely.
Well, Snoopy's playing Hunters. That's the point, and it's not a surprise. I'm surprised that Qvo went to the Nem. I do think that it's a great transformation. Double Nem is going to shred through just about anyone late game, but a lot of mobile targets here for the Solar Scarabs. They've got a great team fight. Darkest of Nights is just going to mess up comms pretty much whenever it gets called out. You can't see anything. You want to stop, you want to back up, you want to retreat, and that's when the Oni Warriors are going to whip out double Nemesis or the Hunbats and just try and, CC you to death, that sort of thing. So I think good play all around. Both teams have gotten some things they want. I imagine the Oni Warriors would have liked to prioritize a Qvo pick, but the way they went, they got the Sylvanus for vote, and they got Dardez on the Morgan. Not my favorite pick in the Bellona. I think it's seen some better days. I think the win rate's just sitting at about 20% right now in this tournament. It's a good solid rock in the solo lane, but it's not going to hard carry the game away like Nika likes to do. There's a lot of CC, though. They got to hold on to the beads. That's what immediately jumps out when you see a Hades Hunbats comp.
Yeah, I mean, Hades Hunbats, as you highlighted a little bit even earlier on, just going to burn beads for each other. Hunbats takes them away, so that way Hades can lock one down, or Hades takes them, so that way the Hunbats can do so here. So if you're the Oni Warriors, you're looking at this composition, you're seeing a Hunbats Hades. If I'm the Oni Warriors, I'm probably avoiding the right side of the map entirely. So if you're QvoFred in this case, do you avoid right lane? And if so, you stay out of solo. Where do you maybe try and put some of that pressure to get the Oni Warriors a nice little lead going? I
think that if you get anti-heal, Scary D is certainly gankable. I mean, you have that prot shred, and Bellona can force out Pillars of Agony early on with the Eagles Rally if you're getting good trades. However, it's just free farm, right? Scary D's going to avoid fighting at all costs. He's going to one-shot the wave, one-shot the blue buff, one-shot backcams. That's his plan, right? He wants to just run around and ignore that. It's just Hades can't really close gap very easily. He's going to dash away, and then what? He's going to get chased down. So I think still a possibility. And you can also never count out Dardez, right? He can make those rotations pretty easily on the Morgan. If he gets a Doom Orb, he starts zooming around the map. He could make those ganks as well. I'm thinking Ward Vision is going to be something the Scarabs have to prioritize.
So making sure to keep some vision on the map. One slot left for the SMITE World Championships. Only one of these two SPL teams can make it. It's all going to start here in game number 1. We'll throw that over with Dulcin and Mifflin.
Couple world champions on both teams as well. Couple of which will not be making it to the SMITE World Championships this year. And then there were 2 vying over 1. The Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs will play a best of 5. Winner moves on. Loser's year is over. And admittedly, Miff, it made me a little sad. Between Hurriwind and Neil, a couple of the most likable guys there are. Talk about pulling no punches. NeilMah straight away putting some damage into Hurriwind. Sad. We're gonna be losing one of them for our SMITE World Championships this year. But good news, Miff, is for the Oni Warriors, history is on their side. This has been a favorable matchup all year long. Now the roster of the Scarabs has changed around a bit. But this is an opponent that the Oni Warriors have done very well against.
It is, and the Oni Warriors draft an Oni Warriors composition, top to bottom, things that we've seen associated with each one of these players throughout the entirety of this year. Difference being that this is a completely different look at the Solar Scarabs. In particular, Snoopy out of mid, the Shibalanke pick, one that I'm a bit concerned about, should be able to establish pressure against the Morgan, and has a sneaky good matchup in that the stealth going to be pretty difficult to utilize. If there's a minion wave nearby, branching Bola might just be able to hunt you down.
Should be able to find a bit of damage, though. Dardez on the Morgan is always a pick that, I don't know, brings some comfort, maybe, for Oni Warriors fans. Such a talented player. And QvoFred on Nem as well. I mean, one of the storied player god combos. We saw a lot of adapting Thor in our first set. QvoFred on Nemesis, quite strong there as well. And on the other side of the jungle, it's more the same. Hunbats for Sam for Soccer has always been a pick. If the team just needs some good old-fashioned initiation, Sam feels very, very confident on the Hunbats. The question then becomes, Miff, burning beads. Ideally, the Fear No Evil can follow up on burnt beads, but can do the burning. QvoFred, Dardez, Vote, they've all got the beads right now, and how Sanford Soccer and Scary D can play around one another with those ultimates could dictate the team fights.
It could, and those team fights are probably a ways off, right? Throughout the early game, looking at both these teams, I don't think either necessarily feels the pressure to get involved early on. Sanford Soccer should have slight advantage over QvoFred, Fear No Evil, at level 5, just better than most things Nemesis can accomplish. But otherwise, it's just about auto attacks, play around your double hunter composition, and potentially look towards objectives. I mean, between Xbalanque and Ram together, you've got a whole lot of shred lacking only in confirmation. But because it's a non-standard mage for the Oni Warriors, you're not super worried about a steal.
Right, not crazy big bursts from the Oni Warriors by any means through Dardez, though Dardez can potentially match some of the burn depending on where his transformation goes. And I think that's not a terrible way to look here, Myth. Do you think the transformation options change during the phase of the game? I know Hunbats tends to be a pretty good Morrigan option. Honestly, Hades might not be terrible at times either. Is it obvious to you, or do you think it depends on the situation?
Situationally, for the most part, Hunbots throughout the early, I think you're just correct to do it. Fear No Evil is such a valuable tool, especially when there's only one relic on the board. Otherwise, Nika's a pretty decent transformation as well. Red buff secured by Scary D there in the or Sanford Soccer rather, in the 1v2. Yeah, so early game, I'm expecting a lot of Hunbots, maybe some Bellonas if you're looking at 1v1s. Late game, probably a whole lot of Hades.
Later on in the game, that's when Scary D is going to be very threatening. That Hades build would feel great for Dardez to steal over. You know, Hades has been through an interesting kind of ebb and flow here this weekend. Only been let through a couple of times. One of the more heavily banned out gods that we've gotten. Has been dealt with in the past. But it's that type of pick where it feels like you might run out of options. Sanford Soccer, level 4. No Fear, No Evil, but an opportunity for a gank on a NeilMah. Scurries away as best he can. The root from Vote, it was necessary, and it hit. Sanford Soccer just needed one more rotation of those abilities. It's an early gank to the dual lane. If we have not seen too many of those, but just shy of landing a kill on a Neil.
Really like the idea there from Sanford Soccer as well. Holds on to the Sacred Monkey Toss for as long as possible, trying to get away from that minion wave and get as much damage to bounce between the two of NeilMah and Vote as he could. But unfortunately, Arch is just a bit too close, and Monkey Toss came out a bit too early. Missed out on some of that value. And this is one of the risks of ganking duo lane. A massive meme in the community is junglers hate going to duo, because if you come up empty like that, there's not much farm for you to fall back to. Sanford Soccer essentially forced to just head back to base and miss out on some of his own farm.
Qvo's going to steal away some of those back camps. Speed buff not up just yet, so all but one of the minions on the right side of the jungle taken away from Sanford Soccer. That means level 5 for QvoFred. Though Fred's got beads here, Myth. Sometimes you'll see Nem go something like a blink earlier on, but safety the name of the game. What does that tell you about Fred's mindset?
It's, I don't want to get Fear No Evil. Please don't come near me with that ability. That's really the only reason. If it were a CC light jungle in the Solar Scarabs, pretty likely that it's a blink pickup. You'd have a better time closing gap on the hunters of the Solar Scarabs, but because there is that threat of, hey, I got caught in the jungle and one ability just really crushed my entire chance at a fight, beads a bit safer. High stakes game, don't want to leave it up to risk. I agree. Pick up the beads. You can get the blink a little bit later on.
Story of QvoFred is going to be one to follow throughout this set. You know, such an emotional player, and you see it in wins and in losses. But some of the greatest clips of all time have been QvoFred pop-offs. So, you know, if he starts feeling himself, that's a big threat to the Solar Scarabs. If the jungler, the Oni Warriors, can really hit that stride early in this set, tends to bode well. But you got a world-class jungler in Sanford Soccer on the other side of things. A great brawl to have to end the year and to bring one more team to the SMITE World Championship. It's been a slow burn, but a burn that's benefited the Oni Warriors so far. About 800 gold on some neutral farm that we've talked about that's gotten taken away. QvoFred made his way to the back camps once or twice. The team seemingly happy to just slowly build up, which you might expect from the Solar Scarabs here. They got double Hunter, couple more items online, collapse on an objective in 5-10 minutes, and that's when your burn should be there.
And you can see the adaptations already from the Oni Warriors to this double hunter composition. NeilMah is already foregone, finishing up the Gauntlet of Thieves, instead moves in towards that Sovereignty. Incredibly tanky against the physical damage dealers of the Solar Scarabs, and sure, Hurriwind playing Magical on the Terra could get a little bit of damage out there, but the real only threat to NeilMah is Scary D at this point. And if Scary is rotated out, something's either gone incredibly well for the Solar Scarabs or they're on damage control trying to stop a Gold Fury. I think it is unlikely that those two butt heads. This could give some leeway to NeilMah to play a little bit more aggressively on the map.
QvoFred has spent a lot of time on the right side of the Solar Scarabs jungle so far. He's got a 1-level lead over Sam for Soccer. Love to steal away just a couple more camps, unable to do so here on the big ones, but keeping Sam for Soccer back. Look, I mean, you see an earlier gank from the Hun Bats. Now you're able to just force Sam to hang out in jungle a little bit longer, delaying help over on the blue buff as well, and Dardez is in. Gets a stun onto Scary D, who's got to dash away, but an Eagles rally on the up-down, and that's your first blood in game 1. I think Dardez may be caught Scary D a bit off guard.
Just a great rotation there from Dardez. Catches the full Morgan base combo, and then Scary D a bit slow on the uptake. Had he channeled the ultimate to immune the Eagles rally, potentially could have survived that situation with a stun too clean.
Oh, QvoFred's in trouble. Use the beads, and Sam for Soccer teleports in, and an immediate answer back from the Solar Scarabs. Exactly what they needed. These types of games, when you lose an early kill, it slows down. You lose a death a few moments later. It feels like it can get out of hand. Fantastic, though, and a great target despite those beads.
It's not CDR in the first slot for Sam for Soccer, but still, taking the beads off of QvoFred, I think there could be an opportunity very shortly to try and reprise that exact same play. Just have him blink in. The damage output with Brawler's beat stick in first slot, incredibly high. Sam for Soccer could headhunt going forward. He's got a couple of targets that he's want to keep down. QvoFred, particularly one of them, but Dardez as well now with that first blood on him. Could make it a bit difficult to start shooting him down if you allow him to get that roll going. Slow him down now, burn the beads off. Opportunities will arise.
You see I mean, it's a good shout, actually, the Brawler's beat stick on Sam. Is that, I mean, obviously you get the anti-heal and that feels good. Does it feel like there's overwhelming healing, though, from the Oni Warriors, or is it just a nice stat stick either way and you get the added benefit of a little additional anti-heal?
It's just for the stats, I think, right now. I mean, of course, anti-heal is valuable. You can slow down some of those HP pots or the Scourge healing or even self-sustain from NeilMah, but it's more so Sam for Soccer wants first rotation of abilities to find the kill. Jotun's a little bit less powerful in that type of situation. That's more if you're just looking to facilitate the rest of your team. If you want consistent Fear No Evils. Sam for Soccer wants the damage, and he's built right for it.
So both junglers have had a hand in the early kills. Dardez transformed into Nemesis on the first rotation of things. That double Divine Judgment just very hard to deal with. And again, looks like solo lane emphasis from the Oni Warriors right now. And as long as you can delay this Hades, it's always going to feel better because we know what it can do a bit later on. And so Nika, who's been so important to this Oni Warriors team, think back. I mean, it's almost poetic, right? Although I've called one thing poetic today, that definitely wasn't, so I got to be careful.
What was that?
I actually forgot already. What was it?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, it definitely wasn't poetic. I do remember that. But this team has gone through a lot. QvoFred going to get ganked again, and it's another simple one for the Solar Scarabs. Pillars of Agony, Fear No Evil, Darkest of Nights. It's just a perfect 3 combo of abilities onto QvoFred. And it's simple for the Scarabs.
It is. Hurry attempts the steal a little bit too late. A great stun from NeilMah does prevent the Greater Scorpion from going to the Solar Scarabs. That's what you expect to see. Anytime those beads are down on Qvo, on Dardez, that's Sam for Soccer's job. Make use of it. This is a composition for the Solar Scarabs that is difficult to burn beads with consistently. It's really up to Hurriwind at this point in the game if Sam for Soccer doesn't want to dedicate his own ultimate to doing it. He doesn't. That's the kill pressure for the Solar Scarabs. So every single time one goes down, keep your eyes on Sam. He's going to try his best to run him down.
Purple buff confirmed, at least by Hurriwind, as NeilMah applies some gentle pressure on the left side. Dardez was on a rotation out of mid, so this Morgan, especially with Doom Orb Myth, never going to shy away from just poking their head on one side of the map or the other. Makes things a bit more simple, and of course that's then something the Solar Scarabs have to be aware of. But you got Darkest of Nights for Snoopy, even though you're not able to physically be there, turning out the lights for a moment, always a bit of benefit to your team. Oni Warriors group up. This is just QvoFred and Dardez. They are burning it, but burn, a bit of an overstatement. Sam for Soccer pokes his head around the corner. The Pyromancer dropped by the Oni Warriors, but picked back up again. This time, NeilMah also here, but Snoopy, Hurriwind both rotating in. It's an ultimate out of the Xbalanque. It times out. And once again, the Pyromancer reset. So Oni Warriors toying with the idea of the right side objective, but not feeling the full commit.
But they're forcing rotations. They're constricting where Sanford Soccer is allowed to be. He has to hover nearby. Scary D rotates out of lane after Nika had already cleared the wave, so a little bit more farm over the Oni Warriors solo laner. Even Snoopy just being forced to use that ultimate makes it a bit more difficult for the Solar Scarabs to execute on ganks elsewhere. This is what I'm talking about with establishing threat and creating pressure on the map, forcing some resources out of the Solar Scarabs. The Oni Warriors doing a very good job of it so far. Able to reset themselves, don't really lose too much of their own, and even hit some pretty significant power spikes on this back. QvoFred in particular, keep your eyes on him. He's already got phenomenal defense shred thanks to Nemesis' ultimate. Now with Executioner as well, this opens the door to even faster objectives. It's really going to help out around that Gold Fury when Vote's there.
Vote will be there. Tends to hang out in lane, but might be in some trouble because Sanford Soccer is here. Vote's got beads, uses them. Wild Hunt down as well. Sam plays it well. Vote also plays it well. More tower diving here. The snipes from Netrioid delayed. Vote trying to heal through, and he won't be able to. Once it's a 3-man gank, there was simply no chance. In the meantime, the Oni Warriors pick up the Pyromancer, but right back to the Gold Fury for the Solar Scarabs.
Warriors on the rotation in. They should be able to slow this one down. Dardez, you got to get in there sooner than later.
Dardez trying for the steal, won't get it. Fear no evil, it's crazy from Dardez, and he'll stick around and try to fight out against Netrioid. So it's Gold Fury, but a transformation and a kill from Dardez. Really makes it a 1-for-1 trade on left, plus Gold Fury for the Scarabs, plus Pyromancer for the Oni Warriors. Doesn't really swing the game heavily, and it's a steady 1,000 gold lead for the Onis.
But the experience still maintained for Vote despite dying there. A half-level to level lead over Netrioid means that he's not even suffering too much. This does stagnate the game a bit. With both neutral objectives off the map, not much to fight over at this point. And it's hard to say which one of these two teams really benefits more. I really do love this Solar Scarabs draft in a true 5-on-5, but the Oni Warriors got themselves a great pick composition. Anybody who's lagging in the jungle or meandering would get caught out and don't have very long to survive if those relics are down. Speaking of down relics, no blink for Sanford Soccer. That's a whole minute without that initiation combo. The Oni Warriors going to benefit greatly from that, especially considering Vote, we're still waiting on those beads.
Yep. I mean, look, you describe it wonderfully there, Miff. The way the Solar Scarabs have played, they've sent someone with Sanford Soccer to a couple of the different lanes. Those have resulted in kills. All 3 affected kills so far for the Hunbats. And the Dust set it up pretty nicely during picks and bans, and we talked about it a little bit. This type of pick for Sam can be a hard carry, but also great at facilitating the team from the early to the midpoint of these games. So QvoFred off to a bit of a slow start here, Miff. I mean, the Nem, you want to get a few items online. Brawler's Beatstick, Executioner. Now picks up the Blink, but Hurriwind low in mid. Eats the hammer from Neil. Tanky enough on the Terra, and enough assistance from Snoopy to send the Oni Warriors right back. Pacing-wise on an M, though, how concerning is it? You got an 0-2 star to level down at the 15-minute mark. I
mean, not ideal. Not ideal at all. Snoopy able to use the CC me of that dash to avoid the hammer from NeilMah. QvoFred is, for the most part, has a very similar pacing to adapting. Doesn't really want to do too much in the early. It's more so that level 14, 15 mark where he starts to get involved. Falling behind, I mean, it'll slow you down, but he'll get there eventually, and he's not so far behind that you're really worried about it.
What Neil saw or wanted here. He transforms into the dragon. Maybe more defensive on an ability that I might have missed, but we'll jump out, join the rest of his team. Draconic transformation, I mean, a decent cooldown. Used now for some damage on the tier 1 tower. Scarabs a bit slow on the reply. Sanford Soccer's got Fear No Evil. He'll use it. It'll catch out QvoFred. Uses the beats, dashes away. And it's a successful initial disengage from the Oni Warriors and a slow rotation back through from Netrioid. Wanted to join that fight. So a few ultimates get dropped, but small win for the Onis. They pick up the tier 1 tower after sending their pressure mid.
And look at the relic usage. Blink off of Scary and Sanford Soccer. Initiation taking a hit. Look at the Ascetic from Hurry. And all really just to get the beads off of QvoFred. Fred's been the target in the jungle a few times. Could be again.
Good fear. Is that a Scary D? Nice chunk damage onto QvoFred as well, who's taken all the CC. Gotta get him. Hurriwind does. But is NeilMah also going to fall prey? He'll leap away. Nika has Eagle's Rally if desperation calls. The fear might force desperation in the last possible second. Nika jumps away, NeilMah doubles back, sacrifices himself. And the Solar Scarabs, Miff, they have grouped so well all around Sanford Soccer and a lot of it around Scary D. And now it's a tier 1 tower in trade for their own.
Major overstay there from the Warriors. After taking the tier 1 and disassembling your own 5 stack, you gotta disengage. Instead, go for the camps, get caught out, and it's the Solar Scarabs who turn around what was or could have been a free tier 1 to the Warriors into an even trade that even skews in favor of the Scarabs.
XB still there. Dardez, what are you doing here? Dying off maybe, yes. Sanford Soccer's got the teleport back through, and a fear no evil for the Scarabs. Might set up more of a fight, but no, Nika's gone back to base. He's rejoined the fight. And that's tilted the scales right back to the Oni Warriors. Boat sustaining up on the wave. Nika on a double kill. And suddenly the Bellona making all the difference. And it's 2 for the solo laner, has taken the beads away from Scary D. Book of the Dead, it's needed, it's helpful, but Nika's got more.
Nika should be able to lock this one down. Slow's coming up soon, but Netrioid around the corner should sink some damage in.
The jumps in all at once. That'll add a third for the Solar Scarabs. That's gonna be a 4th in just a moment. It's damage and delay, but a double kill for QvoFred. And the Oni Warriors, you thought they were caught out, but they flipped it, and they're running to fire.
Fire Giant will go quick. Hurriwind so far away as well. I think he's got to let this one go. No way Hurry steps up into this situation. Could if he's given the opportunity, but it's burning way too fast. The Oni Warriors, great chase down. The Solar Scarabs, similar situation. Try and double dip. It's Sanford Soccer in the jungle who attempts to catch out Dardez, but instead has it turned on him. It's an inverse of what we were just talking about. The Oni Warriors overstay after tier 1. Solar Scarabs do the same after tier 2. A back and forth battle finally lands and levels with the Oni Warriors with a significant game state advantage. Fire Giant on all 5, a great siege composition, auto attack jungle, auto attack hunter, and a Fafnir to boost you with every single neutral objective going to you as well. Now the Oni Warriors, it's just about collecting gold and spending it.
You know, if the Oni Warriors win this game, that's the type of moment when you talk to the Solar Scarabs and you say, you know, what goes on in game 1? That's where, albeit a more sarcastic player, would just talk about how their team threw the game, and that's where you might be able to zoom in here on game 1. But for the Oni Warriors, it's a deep breath type of moment. You had a lead, tossed it away a bit, now you've been given a second chance. You've got Fire Giant taking the 1-0 advantage in this set. Massively impactful. So a breather before going back and buying some items. Nice little power spike for Dardez on the tier 2 Ob Shard, and Contagion for Nika. That's some anti-heal from what Hurriwind and Scary D will both be wanting to supply. A lot of this flows through Sanford Soccer here, Miff. Scary D, 1, 2, and 3 on the Hades. Haven't seen those ults heavily layered on top of one another in a big team fight yet.
Not just yet, and he's so close to another power spike, finishing up that Talon tree. The Solar Scarabs, I think, probably will have about a minute before the Oni Warriors are able to group up proper on one of these tier 2s. Right side tier 1 if the Warriors so choose. Not really a defendable spot for the Solar Scarabs. We'll get a good idea of what the Oni Warriors are trying to do. If it's a group up on left, I think you're just talking about grabbing every single tower first. But if they start on right and sort of work their way towards left, could push into that Phoenix. And as of now, it's the Oni Warriors on the right-hand side. Solar Scarabs just collecting every bit of farm that they can, look for as many power spikes as they can beforehand. But when you talk about anti-healing, I think you're right to do it. Contagion finished up for Nika, Toxic Blade as well, Brawler's Beat Stick, Divine Ruin.
It's all been there. Yep.
The Oni Warriors got everything. And the Solar Scarabs, it's inconsequential healing. It's not active decision-making healing. If Hurriwind drops his ultimate, that Ank's going to find value no matter what. If Scary D wants to use Devour Souls, that Ankh, all that anti-heal, going to find value no matter what. You got to play very careful around some of those cooldowns.
I wonder if that makes the Solar Scarabs think twice. They're going to have to do a lot of thinking here. So it looks like it'll be soft defense around this tier 2 tower. Fire Giant has melted away, so the Solar Scarabs have done a bit of their job here on the first Fire Giant defense, and it's a limit how far into your side of the map the Oni Warriors can push. Not that it's been much up to the Scarabs. The Oni Warriors have just chosen to reset, but about a minute left now. Warriors would love to knock down these last few towers. Doesn't seem like we're going to get a Phoenix shout unless Scarabs potentially overstay under the right side. Now Dardez and QvoFred, they're spotted by a ward over towards mid and now seen by Sanford Soccer. So Scarabs know where their numbers advantages may lie, and it's not in the mid lane. That'll be one more tower taken down. A Trebuchet also working towards left. Really, Myth, this feels like a couple extra minor gold spikes before the next big Fire Giant fight.
Yeah, it does. Now left side should go pretty quick. Dardez has Poly, and it's just Sam for Soccer nearby, and Sam's staring down the barrel of a QvoFred with Magi's Blessing, and that is one of the most deflating situations to be a Hunbots. It's not up to him. Doesn't really have the ability to deal with that Magi's. It really is. Can Scary get in there? Is Hurriwind finding a stun from a distance? If no, Fear No Evil, which has been the silver lining for the Solar Scarabs in every one of these team fights, really won't be able to lock down QvoFred anymore. Reset from the Oni Warriors, tier 2, barely holding on. The Scarabs able to keep that one alive just for a moment longer. Fire Giant wears off. The Warriors, with a pretty significant lead, should be able to establish even more vision dominance on the right-hand side. Take a peek at the wards. Back camp's already covered nearly all the way to the speed buff. Anyone from the Solar Scarabs that wants to rotate into this fire, they'll know exactly where they are.
We posed the question at the beginning of the game, Myth. It's all around, is the Fear No Evil going to be doing the beads burning? Is it going to be following up on burnt beads? Outside of like a moment or two early, and it's really been where some individual picks have happened, that's when we've been able to have the beads conversation. But to your point about the bubble for QvoFred, then 4 sets of beads to also work through, and opportunities for CC immunity outside of that. Fear No Evil and Pillars of Agony seem fantastic to combo with one another because they are, but you've got all of these defensive tools at your disposal for the Oni Warriors and not heavily under pressure from anywhere outside of that. It is a nice offensive boost here. So Fire Giant's going to respawn now. This one's still standard because it was an early first FG. Just now at the 23-minute mark. Wonder how cautiously or aggressively the Oni Warriors choose to play here, because remember, throughout the year, it's been some issues around objectives that have flipped games back. Maybe QvoFred finding his target in Netrioid. In fact, Netrioid actually turns most of the damage here. Ikavale, last item now for Nika. So whether that's damage onto FG or scrapping with some of these carries, Nika's now in a much better spot.
Yeah, the 1v1 potential could line up against either of these ADCs and likely win out on that battle. Bellona uniquely suited at dealing with the double hunter composition. Disarm plus block stacks in the first ability means that the Solar Scarabs will be really reliant on Scary D at slowing down Nika, which is not an ideal situation. You want this Hades diving, but if he has to play concern for his backline, really limits the initiation, which has already been limited fairly. I mean, Sam for Soccer, he's been hesitant going with Fear No Evil.
Hurriwind, stun, melted but not killed. The Fear No Evil from Sam for Soccer has delayed the engagement, but Nika's found the backline nonetheless. Scary D's got to lead. Pillars of Agony already used. The chase down is in, and it's the Nemesis damage and slows that are going crazy, as well as Nika, who has scrapped wonderfully. A double for the solo laner. 3 down from the Scarabs. That'll be another FG to go.
That's so tough because Sam for Soccer, there's nothing else he can do in a situation like that. You have to go in. You have to start up that fight. Yeah, and what does he get? He gets 2 sets of beads, but because the Oni Warriors have easy chase down now, Sam for Soccer needs to put himself in a committal position to burn away those relics. The Warriors say, okay, you burnt my beads, I'll burn your life, and you won't be able to make use of it at any point. Now, 20 seconds of the grayscale, Fire Giant on 5 once more, and the Bird under threat.
The Bird should go down. Snoopy dead for 10, same with Scary D. Still a couple, there you go back, finish it off. Couple tier 2 towers left though, so it's not an immediate Phoenix siege on either side of the map, but you will be able to get a bit more gold from this tier 2. And this is what we've talked about, a lot of what we love. When the Fire Giant happens, you've got that momentary advantage instead of immediately going back and resetting. Oni Warriors have stuck around, gotten a tower, gotten a Phoenix, and now can go back and reset. But Sam for Soccer doesn't want to let them spend that gold.
He's got his ult.
Because it's still in the back pocket. Oni Warriors get the Oni Fury. Fear No Evil onto 3. Sam looking for the play, won't find it, but plenty of damage on a NeilMah. Should be the first kill, and it is. Netrioid, some life here in game number 1. Nika left running, but an Eagles rally, all he might need. Peel away 1 FG buff. Not too shabby for the Solar Scarabs on pretty low commitment play.
Sam for Soccer has to work so hard, Dave. He has to work so hard to find the value with this ultimate, man. It's burn beads on Fire Giant, trade my life, respawn, and W key at the Gold Fury. Fortunately, does find a couple of key targets, but with just Neil falling down, this tier 2 might be the best the Solar Scarabs can ask for. Afterward, even in a 5 versus 4, with Fire Giant on the 4, I think it favor the Oni Warriors. So the Solar Scarabs close up a bit of that gold, but it still is all impact gold. No true 6 slot for the Oni Warriors, barring Nika, who has just finished up that starter item. The Scarabs still have a pretty steep hill to climb, but I think they've identified their win condition. It's Sanford Soccer. If it's a 3-man ultimate and the beads are already gone, awesome. Find the damage follow-up. Netrioid will land his ultimate shots every single time and at least confirm some of those kills. But it's burning those beads that's the concern. You don't want it to be Sanford Soccer. You'd much prefer it's Scary D. You'd much prefer it's Hurriwind. But because they're so far behind, Solar Scarabs that is, a 2-second fear sounds amazing on paper. Doesn't have the threat behind it to make those beats worthwhile. Hurriwind stun from a distance, great. But the damage output isn't a standard mage. Snoopy's playing a hunter. Has to land a couple of those auto attacks and pray that they crit if he wants to really generate threat onto the Warriors. Often we've seen them take the stun, hold on to their beads. It is truly one thing that the Solar Scarabs have got to fight back in, and the beads are already back up. Fear no evil, he's going to have to do it twice.
Yeah, it might be for now, because you do have a double hunter composition that'll scale up. Full build except for starter item for Netrioid. One item missing for Snoopy in that build, but Dardez very strong. He's opted for the bubble as well. Talk about Sam working hard. Now you got 2 bubbles to pop. Plus a bunch of beads on the Oni Warrior side of things. Nika brawling with Scary D. He's actually found really good damage. Darkest of Nights used by Snoopy, and right side Phoenix loses half of its health in the meantime. Voda's gone full crit, except for Devour's Gauntlet here. And I don't see any Spectrals. Great opportunity for the Sylvanus to find his first kill on one of these squishier targets in this last fight as well. NeilMah presses the go button.
Could walk himself in here. Nika's got the flank as well. But the Solar Scarabs, they're staying calm. They want to defend.
Nika's just buying space. Horse goes out. So does an ultimate from Hurriwind and a Fear No Evil. Looks like from one. Just repels for the moment. All right, so a bit of flash in the pan and not much after the fact. That was a Sanford Soccer ult that sent a few scurrying. Fire Giant's gonna fall off and only the one Phoenix down.
If an ADC is able to eat a Fear No Evil and hold on to both relics, things are not good on the Solar Scarab front. That is a tough situation. Sanford Soccer seemed to have thought there would have been a bit more offense from the Oni Warriors there, but instead it was just poking and prodding into the bird. Solar Scarabs, though, around this Fire Giant, will have a bit of a map state advantage come back their way. Advantage in that it's a loss of disadvantage. Mid-Phoenix coming back up very shortly. Should only be about one more enhanced wave that they need to concern themselves with. But the golden experience, it's still the same gap we had in the previous fight, maybe even a little bit better for the Oni Warriors. A lot of those targets have already ticked over to level 20, so experience a bit deceptive, but gold still certainly a major topic of conversation. Relics of the Solar Scarabs haven't been upgraded just yet. Oni Warriors, they're benefiting from that, essentially just an additional ability. Getting some CDR off with those beads, things along those lines could really start to turn around some of these fights. And, well, I think turnaround is probably not the best way to put it. No. Further add fuel to the fire.
That's right.
That's tough.
Gaining an additional advantage. Nika.
They have so many already.
I know. Do they need more? No. They might, though. They might like it. Solar Scarabs. They might send Sanford Soccer forward here. He's got a Fear No Evil. Won't have the time to use it. Fire Giant yet again. This time only 20 seconds away from being enhanced. Warriors not wanting to leave things up to chance. No stun on a Snoopy. My God, Snoopy might have died. Or definitely would have had to use both Beats and Aegis there had the stun from Dardez been in range. I got to look towards Nika here as well. Him and QvoFred have done such a good job of simply walking at the back line. And a 4-0 for Bellona, who's had Ikavel for a while. An upgraded starter item for a while. Now that this mid-Phoenix is back up, though, does cut off the entry from Nika, from Dardez. Darkest of Nights out. Again, an early ultimate used by the Solar Scarabs. Oni Warriors happy to take a breather and back away and reinitiate.
Just so simple. Lights are out, I'm done. Come initiate on us if you want, but there's no way the Scarabs take a fight outside the Phoenix. Nika doing a good job. Lockdown Sanford Soccer keeps your backline incredibly safe, but the Oni Warriors are taking a slow approach to this one. Dardez should be able to finish off this Phoenix soon.
Whoa, Nika, he's taking a lot of damage here. Nika might have to use Eagle's Rally, barely gets out of the base of the Solar Scarabs, but still left running. Mid lane Phoenix drops. And the Oni Warriors didn't make much more headway on the right side. Sent the last bit of damage into the mid lane Phoenix, so at least that got taken down. But you've lost some of your initiation with Nika. Will teleport back in, but does not have the up-down to start off a fight.
Doesn't, but you still have other ways to initiate. Dardez could turn into San Francisco. NeilMah could land a hander from range. Or Nika could just take a bird on his own.
He's doing just that. There's your Fear No Evil. And your Pillars of Agony. Oh, but San Francisco's lost a fight anyway. And now it's a 2 versus 1. One that Scary D doesn't want to be a part of. Snipes make almost no difference in the world. Dardez drops Scary. And now the Oni Warriors is 5. Losing their solo laner makes you think twice. But you've opened up the base of the Scarabs.
Left and mid Phoenix off the board. Dardez in the stealth. Anybody could fall, but those minions keep them out. The auto attacks from Netrioid and Snoopy make it a bit difficult. A bullet hell on the left-hand side. Doesn't want to walk through that one. 4 versus 3. Still a minute and a half on the Fire Giant. Polynomicon for Dardez and minion wave nearby. I think the Solar Scarabs have got some more defense ahead of them. The Oni Warriors, they're keeping the push up.
Walk over the bracer. NeilMah can transform at any moment. Chooses now. And this Phoenix will drop. QvoFred has actually made his way onto the Titan. He's ushered in a few of his minion waves. And it looks like maybe one more reset for the Oni Warriors. All 3 Phoenixes down. It's not often you see a turnaround from this game state. Say what you will about that game state, but the Scarabs, they have fought and clawed their way. Ultimately has not saved the game, but just delayed it.
Every minute that this game has gone beyond the 25-minute mark has been fought for and earned, sweat, cried, and bled over by the Solar Scarabs, holding on desperately to the last remnants of hope. The Oni Warriors, knocking on the door, have been able to break the entirety of the base off the back of great macro play, really. Nika just keeping them guessing on where that push is going to originate. The Solar Scarabs, though, this is a Hail Mary attempt. Hurriwind very far forward on his own. Even if he does connect massive CC, nobody nearby to follow up. Solar Scarabs just posturing. It's Primal Fury. And one that the Oni Warriors probably not even concerned about. I mean, if we look at the charts, it's not denting it.
No, and at this point in the game, I'm not sure we're too concerned about them either. I mean, you're catching up on gold if you're the Scarabs, but you're right on the 6 slot. It's really more about burn around the objective. The additional benefit of getting that Primal Fury may matter for the Scarabs. If this game finds a way to go on another 5-10 minutes, another Fire Giant after this one. This one enhanced, though, and that's a massive difference. Oni Warriors have had 3 regular Fire Giants. If any of those had been enhanced, remember, we were 20 seconds away or so from the previous one being enhanced, but Warriors didn't want to risk that. None of the Phoenixes particularly close to coming back either, maybe mid, about a minute away. All these waves are going to have to be dealt with, and Miff, I'm not sure the Scarabs have much of an option here. I suppose you could send snipes from Netrioid to right, hope for a risk, hope for a Hail Mary type of call. But I don't think you can just leave your base open to all these waves pouring in.
And so far, left side wave has been left open. That's getting dangerously close to the Titan room. The Solar Scarabs showing presence. Scary D caught out.
Oh no, this is bad. This is bad for the Scarabs, bad for Scary. Rampage for QvoFred, who's started this game slow, but now Nika, he's in a 1v4 of his own, and the Scarabs would have loved to have traded back, unable to get that kill. Dardez through the stealth will send some damage towards Snoopy.
Wards.
It's the clean one and done for the Oni Warriors, and a teleport from Nika brings them right back to the fight.
Fire Giant will go quick. The Solar Scarabs will not step up without their Hades. So enhanced fire to 5 of the Oni Warriors, just as some of these Phoenixes are starting to respawn. Minion waves already leaking in on both side lanes as well. The Solar Scarabs, 30 seconds they have to defend without Scary D on the map. That's difficult. San Francisco's been working overtime the entire time. It's got to do it some more. Got to work some miracles, really.
Yeah, bubbles, beads, same story as we've had all game long. There's still 15 seconds on Scary D. That is time aplenty. Both teams have had opportunities here in game 1, but it's the Oni Warriors with an early Fire Giant that wrestled control back from the Scarabs. And now just 1 siege away from ending the game, but again, cautious, as the Warriors have been all game long.
Give me your birds.
Everything on the map is down. There's literally nothing else for the Oni Warriors to wait on except for minion waves. But now Scary D is back. On QvoFred, it's on Nika, and now it's on NeilMah, who's transformed. He'll start off this fight. QvoFred dashes away from the walls of Hurriwind. Both teams taking a breather.
It's At least Magi's off of Qvo, so now it's only Beads as a line of defense around the CC of the Solar Scarabs, but where is it?
Oh, scary knee, Book of the Dead working overtime as an Eagles rally ushers the Oni Warriors into the Titan room, and a Fear No Evil on 3 members of the Scarabs, and the damage finds its way onto the Titan. It's all the Warriors were concerned about in game 1 to the Oni Warriors.
A very clean game 1 at that. Takes them a little while pushing into that base, but the Solar Scarabs really just didn't feel like they had any way to optimize on Sanford Soccer's play. It is seldom we see that many 3, 4, 5-man Fear No Evils go unrewarded. Sanford Soccer, I think it's a composition diff in this one because that Hunbots looks very good individually. You just need to find something else that can threaten those relics a little bit more. Maybe an Athena, Ymir, some more dedicated, easy to confirm hard CC.
Well, especially at the end of the game there, honestly, Dardez transforms into the Hunbots, just drops the Fear No Evil and wants the Solar Scarabs to get out of the Titan room. I don't even think we saw any kills on that final fight. I think the Oni Warriors, just all 5, turn their eyes to the Titan and get things done. I'll call it methodical. It took 4 FGs to get there. First one opens up the Phoenixes. Second one drops the first Phoenix. Third gets all 3 down. And then 4th ends the game. If you rewind to early goings, though, Scarabs had opportunities to really take the lead in this game. Some overstays, really the one costly overstay for the Solar Scarabs started this big snowball out of control. It's the Oni Warriors striking first blood. Solar Scarabs, big game 2 coming up next.
Game number 1 in the battle of our SPL teams goes over to the Oni Warriors, though this was not an easy game necessarily for the Warriors. A hard-fought early game from the Solar Scarabs at least delayed things for a little while. A couple of overextensions by the Oni Warriors drew this out maybe a little longer than they were hoping, but at the end of the day, it's the Oni Warriors who come out on top. And thankfully, I've got Trelly joining me over here on the desk to help me continue to break this game down, because this one really was back and forth to start this thing out. Trading blows there. The Hunbats probably the most pivotal for really both of these teams out there, whether that be the actual Hunbats or the Morgan Hunbats by Dardez.
Yeah, early on, I did expect Dardez to make some clutch rotations over to Scary D, which we did see, but it was really Nika on the Bellona that was really getting active as well late game. I didn't expect so much because the Bellona has been hot and cold. Not for Nika, but for pretty much everyone in this tournament. We've been seeing it in solo lane. Sometimes it gets off to a good lead. Sometimes it gets camped. This time around, though, Nika was having a great performance on the Bellona, setting up for his team, and the rest of the team was able to follow up as well. Of course, we knew Dardez was going to have a great performance on the Morgan. That goes without saying. But I think while the Scarabs did get active in the early, the Oni Warriors were always confident that their late game would be a little bit better if they were able to get their Hunters online, or in this case, their Vote, and then Dardez, he could transform into anyone, but get their carries online, because they really do have some great DPS dealers on this squad. I was also impressed with NeilMah and the Fafnir, some good transformations. When you have auto attackers in your comp like this, and you also get a Fafnir, yeah, your late game shred's going to be pretty solid.
So the Oni Warriors able to bring it back together. It took them a little over 30 minutes to be able to really bring this one back in, but so many of these highlights you can see, it's off the initiation of Nika. And kind of one thing that, that you expressed to me whenever we were watching this game, away from here, was kind of the lack of sustain from Snoopy in this build. It was a very kind of like catch-all style of build, and it was catching everything
I'd
except
argue he caught
for lifesteal. He kind of threw like 5 fishing hooks out and kind of came up with a boot on a few of them. He had power, he had attack speed, had a sprinkle of crit in there, but
he had a little of everything, but not a lot of anything.
Yeah, and had a little of 0 lifesteal in that build. Made it so hard for him to stick around in so many of these team fights.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite, but I do understand the need for Transcendence on X-Ball. If you're using that first ability, the bolas really do drain your mana pool. It's just, would have preferred just seeing like a Death's Toll if that's what you really wanted. However, I'm not going to fault just Snoopy on that one. I think the entirety of the team had some slip-ups. I think San Soccer came up massive. There were some really big Hunbats ults that game, just a little bit too far behind. And once you're looking at 15,000, 20,000 gold deficit, even another thing though, the Oni Warriors played very careful. I mean, that is not the style of play you see when someone's up that much. Usually just, go for the Titan and you feel confident. They were playing very reserved, possibly because World's chances are on the line here. Very calculated, though, by the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, confident but calculated by the Oni Warriors. That's them game number 1. We jump into the picks and bans for game 2. Solar Scarabs now in the first pick position. And curious how some of the bans might change up and maybe how some of the draft shifts around up against the Oni Warriors. We will still see the Naja as a ban by the Solar Scarabs. Not something that Sam is interested in playing, and not something that they're willing to maybe top pick or give over to QvoFred. So they're going to go ahead and take that one off the table. Oni Warriors will still put a little bit of respect towards Snoopy over in the mid lane by banning away the Vulcan and the Morgan. There's a big respect over towards that guy. Because remember, this is something that Miff and I talked about yesterday, which is the Morgan's not really in a great spot right now. She's not in a bad spot, but this isn't really a top mage at the moment. A lot of her clear, a lot of her damage has been nerfed over time, but still showing that these players who are really good on that pick can really make it shine.
Yeah, her early clear being hurt does stop some of that early pressure. However, if you're making use out of every single ult, every single transformation, it really doesn't matter if you're a little slower in the early for clear-wise. So I think smart for the Solar Scarabs to take that one away. And in turn, they're going to grab themselves the Maui. I mean, the CERN and the Ishtar were banned by the Oni Warriors, sort of forcing the Scarabs into picking their support first. A pick that Hurriwind does enjoy, as said in the pre-game interview. So expect some extra early pressure towards that duo lane just by nature of Maui's kit. Jumping in, getting some pulls back. You can look to get kills, especially if NeilMah's on an immobile support.
Had some maybe choice words for Aggro, the designer of the god, at least in some of their discussions about it, but something that Hurriwind is not strayed to go towards. Really kind of seeing the evolution of Hurriwind as a support player throughout Season 9 and the gods that he has picked, the way that he has played in this role is really something to behold. And if you weren't keeping track of Hurriwind throughout the entirety of the year, I mean, go back and look at him in like his first month of playing support competitively during the SPL qualifiers, and then watch this evolution through the SCC and now into the SPL. Has bled through really nicely for this player and has really made him such a strong component for the new Solar Scarabs roster. The Oni Warriors, though, after the Maui pick by the Scarabs, they'll draft up at least some of their side lane once again. Ram picked up for Vote, though. Could still go to Dardez. We've seen the Ram mid a couple of times. And then Amaterasu locked in for Nika.
Scary D wants to take the Colin into the Soul lane versus the Ama. Gonna get online a lot earlier. You have pressure to look for ganks in that lane just because of the nature of your rage transformations if you're able to use that correctly, which most of these Soul laners do. Up against an Ama, you should be getting pressure and possibly even looking towards some invades depending on what QvoFred is able to go through in the jungle. I'm curious to see if a hunter gets prioritized here, and it will be the Chernobog. I think, you know, Snoopy's played it a fair bit, and Netrioid still does have the capability to pick this character up. At the moment, I'm going to say it's mid, but we'll see how the rest of the draft goes through. Either way, you're going to have to worry about the global presence now. That ultimate can be super annoying if you're trying to fight on opposite sides of the map, and then you assume Chernobog's not there, and he instantly is able to zoom on over. It's annoying to deal with. You got to make sure you're always prepping for the numbers advantage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well with this Chernobog, was that we've seen Snoopy play it a couple times, so it leaves some flexibility for this god. So we'll see where it ends up lining out based on some of the rest of the draft. Oni Warriors will go back to the Fafnir for NeilMah. Worked well for him in game number 1. We'll see if he can hold up that same level in game number 2 for the Oni Warriors. Now, as we jump into the second wave of bans, still shots in the jungle. A couple at Sam for Soccer was how it was last time for the Oni Warriors. It was a Mercury and a Pele last time around. It will still be the Mercury for the Oni Warriors and a Poseidon ban by the Solar Scarabs, something that we saw Dardez play in game 1 and I believe also game 2 yesterday in their set against Hex Mamba. Worked really well for Dardez, so maybe no surprise seeing that one is going to get banned away, but it's the Scarabs who actually are the ones to ban the Pele away.
This has been a pick that neither one of these teams really want to let through in the second wave of bans. I guess just realize the solo kill potential as well as the movement in the free farm is something that they don't want to deal with in this case. So I actually really do like the Mercury ban we expected, but the Hebo ban is something I was thinking the Solar Scarabs might want to go to, because if Snoopy is taking that Chernobog mid, you got to imagine Net's also going to take a Hunter, so magical damage through the jungle could be something the Scarabs prioritize, and we know that both of these teams have seen the mean end of a Hebo recently, so probably smart to take that one away, just giving you flashbacks of Johnny's play. And it looks like the Oni Warriors are going to be grabbing the Nemesis once again for QvoFred. Plenty of prot shred there, good die potential. I mean, we saw it all last game. Whether or not you get off to an early start, doesn't really matter. That prot shred late game is still going to be real solid.
So far, really only a change-up forced out of the mid for Dardez. He'll have to play something different this time around. And then we have the Amaterasu instead of the Bellona, but the Fafnir Nemesis returns from game number 1. I guess the Ram moving over in place of the Chronos, so we'll have to see what ends up being the final selection for the Warriors, because similar to this Chernobog being flexible for Snoopy or Netrioid, depending on where you want to throw that one, this Ram's similar for Dardez in Vote. We've seen Dardez take this one mid a couple of times, so we'll see if that ends up going to him, or if we see a more traditional mage or maybe another hunter make its way into the pool. But final 2 options for the Solar Scarabs. You've got some long-range initiation from Maui. You've got some in-your-face initiation with Cucullin. Is there anything missing from the Solar Scarabs roster you'd like to see short up in these final 2?
I think that prot shred would be a big deal again. Because of that Hebo ban, it's possible the Solar Scarabs are pivoting their draft a little bit. I find it hard to believe that they would just lock another hunter in for Netrioid without getting another applicator of some good protection shred. Unless, of course, Sam for Soccer is going to go towards, I don't know, an Alquang at this point. There's not too many magical junglers you really want to look to this late in a draft with the Hebo and the Poseidon gone. So that could be why they're thinking about this one a little bit longer, because Netrioid still does have the capabilities to take that Chernobog into duo lane, and it looks like that will be the adaptation. They changed up entirely. They're going to go with the Awilix and the Agni, sending Cherno over to the duo lane. I like this. I would not doubt that they were looking for that Hebo once it was taken away. They had to get some more magical damage in Agni, who has had a fantastic tournament, by the way. This character been doing big damage, very safe. You don't have to worry too much, and it's the AMC getting locked in. Dardez either doesn't care about patch notes or he's able to make these characters work regardless, because the Maui and the AMC have fallen out of favor for pretty much everyone besides him.
My man said, those patch notes can't stop me. I can't even read right now. He is playing this AMC, whether it is top of the meta or non-existent for so many of the players, but an AMC Nemesis and an Amaterasu to go through. I mean, you look at a single target that gets caught out by the Oni Warriors, and that could be devastating for the Solar Scarabs. But, as mentioned, dipping very heavily into physical damage, have 2 forms of Prot Shred now with the Nemesis and the Amuzen Cob, but both of those tied to the ultimate. Do you worry for the Oni Warriors late game as things start to develop and as those physical protections start to stack up for the Maui, for the Kukulkan? Do you worry about the Oni Warriors late game kill potential?
I don't think that their kill potential is the problem. They've got a Fafnir and 4 auto attackers. Like, they should be just fine. No matter who they get to, they'll have enough protection, shred to just, shred through them. I think their comp is a bit late game oriented here. AMC can get online at level 5, of course, but you want Rama and you want Fafnir to get some more itemization. You want that Shogun's Kusari. You want some frenzies to be popped, that sort of thing. But it's not that easy to find these ganks as Samber Sucker, right? Going for kills on Ama through Kukulkan, you're not going to be able to apply too many knockups. I think Nika's just going to be able to hotkey and say, hey, if you go for your ult, I'm just going to immune it. I'm going to dash away. Samber Sucker can't pull me back in. I'm going to be fine. However, you can look towards the AMC. That's probably where the pressure needs to lie. This god has taken a lot of nerfs. He doesn't clear the wave as fast. He doesn't farm as fast. And he only gets 1 set of beads. So trying to lock him down, I think the Agni could pull the beads very easily, and then Samber Sucker could have a free time trying to find a gank.
So you're kind of thinking maybe late game slanted a little bit more so for the Oni Warriors, allow Dardez to try and get as much pressure in mid as he can. So then is the onus then on the Solar Scarabs for trying and get the ball rolling a little bit earlier, maybe try and take over the early game so that way the Warriors can't get to that late game?
That would be the call for sure. If you're letting Fafnir quadruple auto attack get to late game, your objectives are going to not be existent. Every time you see them spawn, they'll die just as quickly, and you don't want your tanks to be anywhere near that sort of draft. So I'm thinking early pressure for the Solar Scarabs for sure.
Early game for the Scarabs, late game for the Warriors, but we got to figure out which of those two is going to prevail for these 2 squads. We jump into game number 2 with Dulcin and Mifflin.
That's right, and Miff, what's the most important game of the set?
1.
Game number 2, exactly, and we'll see if the Oni Warriors are just 1 game away from going back to Worlds, or if the Solar Scarabs guarantee us at least a game 4. The desk sort of sets the stage for us here, Miff, between an AMC, a Ram, maybe a bit later on in the game, but also feeling like the Solar Scarabs have the opportunity to get active early.
I mean, sure, the Scarabs have got opportunities. Anytime there's an Awilish on your team, you're feeling pretty decent about it. Scary D on the Kukulkan should be able to hold his own lane. But I'm not so certain I fully agree with the, hey, AMC late game, right? AMC is very high pressure in the early. That's why he's gotten selected so much throughout the year.
Also late.
Also late,
right,
very good.
But not just late.
Not just late, right? It is, hey, I'm going to out-clear just about anybody, and that starts at level 3. So keep your eyes on Dardez. He could certainly be a point of contention for the Oni Warriors. They could play through him if they so choose, whereas this Agni has gotten a lot of changes not only to him throughout the year, but also to the itemization that these mages have gone towards, Sands of Time in particular. Getting additional damage to minions could help out a fair bit.
It's an interesting start.
Oh, I missed it. I was doing my spiel.
You were doing your spiel. It's a small thing, but Qvo soloed green while Vote and Dardez did red together, and then Dardez went back to speed with Qvo, who then went right. I don't know if it's ultimately going to make much of a difference, but does end QvoFred over here on the right side of the map.
I think that just opens up your support to defend purple buff.
Sure.
And it still clears the entire jungle. We've seen it like once or twice. It's a smart adaptation to this invade meta that has established.
Was an adaptation. Ultimately didn't mean too much, but always fun to watch teams flexing around on the meta a little bit. Goodness, Sam and Hurriwind both take a decent bit of damage. Now, while we see these double ADC compositions with a physical solo laner, usually the conversation is, okay, it's heavy fizz, but you've got a Divine Judgment from Nem to steal away prots. You've got a Stinger from AMC to shred prots.
Less than it used to, but still pretty good.
That in the past has been enough and maybe by your own words there, Myth, still should be enough later on in the game.
You've also got Nika's passive, the triple auto attack to make everybody do a little bit more damage as well. So the Oni Warriors with lockdown could really deal with just about anybody. In particular, I'm concerned for the tanks, Scary D and Hurriwind. Hurriwind could pull anybody in, sure, but they're going to be returning damage the entire time, and a whole lot of it. And so often in the late game team fight, it's Kakoan leap in, Kakoan ult, and pray that transformation happens quick enough.
Yep.
I'm not sure that it can happen quick enough with this style of draft from the Oni Warriors. I'm excited to see how it pans out, but looking at itemization already, it seems to me that Scary D is not so concerned with defense, instead likely Soul Leader in that first slot.
It's a great stat stick item. QvoFred, San for Soccer, both on the right side. Blue buff spawning shortly, but no invade for now from either of the two junglers. Now, one thing you and I had talked about, really at length, Myth, while picks and bans were going on, we actually had a really nice intellectual conversation about this, really going through the theory of SMITE.
Are you stroking my ego or yours?
No, I'm saying you and I both.
Yeah,
we're going tit for tat on all the nuances and the numbers and really the code. We got down to code level about this AMC and how, you know, you're gonna have a Kakullan diving in, you're gonna have potential big pulls from Hurriwind, because so often the conversation is susceptible because it's relatively immobile. What's the level of concern for Dardez here on the AMC?
Prognosis, don't get pulled, you're probably okay, is as far as I'm willing to go with it, right? It's not standard initiation, barring Hurriwind. Landfall, of course, great, awesome. If you land it, there's a wall behind them, you pulled them into your front line, and it's really difficult for AMC to deal with that situation. Otherwise, unlikely that Hurriwind's finding max range pulls with the first ability against AMC, especially in the late game team fight. Scary D initiation, pretty strong, but hasn't gone towards Blink in first slot. Won't necessarily be incredibly tanky with this style of build either, so we'll have to be hesitant on how he starts up the fight. I would be much more concerned if Hurriwind was playing something like Ymir. Throw a wall up behind an AMC, things hit the fan immediately. But because it's tied to the ultimate, I think that if Dardez is playing intelligently, as he always does, hangs out in that back line, it would be pretty difficult for the Solar Scarabs to dive him. In fact, I might even stretch to say you could use Dardez as bait. Because he is such a high priority target.
Fantastic knock up and a pull from San for Soccer!
No way!
The last bit from Scary D, it's there in first blood. That was close. Nika nearly gets away, but nearly not enough. And that's first blood for the Solar Scarab. Soul Leader online for Scary D. A few extra stacks on a nice initiation from Sam.
Yeah, Nika has learned his lesson now. If Scary D is just randomly running at you with his ultimate, you're going to have to Dazzling Offensive to immune the knockup, or Gravity Surge will be there every single time. Fortunately for Nika, he's been able to get the better end of the farm on this side of the map pretty consistently, so hasn't fallen too far behind. Backs for the Golden Blade, teleports back in, doesn't even miss out on too much of the wave either. Should be able to get a bit of that pressure back. But as far as the 1v1 is concerned, once Soul Leader is done for Scary D, the sustain advantage that Nika generally benefits from when he decides to play the Amaterasu will be mitigated a fair deal. You got the self-sustain from the first ability, but if Scary D's fighting, he's also healing and also getting stronger, getting closer to that Rage transformation.
Yep.
Might dissuade Nika from looking at that 1v1 anymore.
So it's an early advantage for Scary D, who, you know, if you follow the journey of Scary D on the Scarabs team, it was a slow starter earlier on in the year. It was a team that struggled to really find their identity. At times, we have seen that vintage Scary D, at the time, Bel Air type of performance. It just has not been the consistent thread all year long. Opening up that door now on really what is a vintage Scary D type of pick in the Kakullan. Should give the Solar Scarabs and their fans a bit of confidence moving forward. But say the same for Nika and Amaterasu. How many times has this pick simply won games for the Oni Warriors? Two heavy hitters.
Like a 15-game stretch this year where he just only played Ama and only won?
Yeah, and you know what? I couldn't remember if Nika was the type of guy who enjoyed it or felt.
He hated it.
You know, okay, right. He's one of the players who's like, I gotta play this every time, because there are some players. Snoopy's at risk of being one shot. Stinger picked up by Dardez, so relatively low commitment there, and forces Snoopy to dash away. No pots remaining in the mid lane. Sanford Soccer lurking. Suppose Scary D could find a knock-up on a Nika again, but as you mentioned, I think Nika had learned. But you're right. I mean, the matchup over in solo between Scary D on Kakala and Nika on Amaterasu. Plenty of history between all of that. Netrioid uses what be the last little bit of mana to get onto the wall and off of it. Vote just needs to hit a couple more autos. Was wondering if he would go to the sky and look for the snipes, but elects to stay on the ground. On the right side, QvoFred will use his beads to avoid the pull from Sanford Soccer. Nika needs to supply a bit more damage because QvoFred's got to leave, but so does Nika, and it's going to happen again. This time it's around blue, but the Scarabs run back a very similar play, and it's put pressure on the Zama, and it's paid off again.
Yeah, we were wrong to be worried at all about the AMC in the early. Clearly, Nika has been the target. Great plays from the Solar Scarabs, Sanford Soccer in particular getting involved very early on in this one. QvoFred just gets pulled by the gravity surge, forced to retreat with his beads, and from there, Nika says, well, I can't just let my jungler die. He's one of my late game win conditions. Reinitiates, loses his own life in trade. The Oni Warrior is going to have to find some sort of equilibrium on that right-hand side. Some rotations from Dardez could help out a bit. We've already seen what his damage output was like 10 stacks ago on the Transcendence, so as he gets closer and closer to finishing up that item, could start to bring the fight over to that right-hand side. If the Solar Scarabs become predictable, if they continually move in towards that blue, I think it is likely the Oni Warriors respond with numbers.
Do you feel like, you know, this is a conversation we probably had over the years, I'm sure, where you get this nice big lead built up in solo lane. It's 2 levels for Scary D. The downside is that it's over in solo lane, right? Do you think that opens your team up, though, to earlier rotations? Are you making objective calls around Pyros, around even Gold Furies to get Scary D in, but you can extend that lead to mid. You sure will. Snoopy deletes Dardez despite the stinger. And so some woes of your big lead being over in solo now mitigated as Snoopy will pull a lead over Dardez.
Well, to answer the initial question, sure. Yes, be concerned. I don't think it's more so around the Pyromancer fight that when solo lane's ahead, which is a bit counterproductive or counterintuitive, right? You'd think he's on that side of the map, Pyromancer's easier. It's the fact that your Solinaire is capable of rotating further without having to worry about lose out on farm, and he rotates with a massive lead. Maybe a Gold Fury fight could start going their way. Maybe things along those lines start to become a little bit more precarious for the Oni Warriors. It's exactly what we had seen from Deathwalker earlier on. Just dominates that lane, starts bleeding the lead elsewhere in the map, invading those back camps, makes it more difficult for the junglers as well. Scary D, not exactly that far gone, right? It's only about a level, maybe a 75% of a level over Nika, but considering the Kakulin, considering how much damage he does in the early and the Soul Eater already done, no anti-heal picked up just yet by the Oni Warriors either, he could be a menace in the back line.
Well, we ultimately, remember we said maybe we shouldn't be worried about Dardez in mid, and then as we say it, the gank happens. Again, feels simple. Dardez holds onto the beads. I assume just sensing that the lockdown wasn't the full issue. There's a lot of burst damage that found its way in. And so Snoopy with Divine Ruin, a little bit of flat pen, helps out against Dardez to start off this laning phase here. I wonder about the timer that's on this match, though, Myth. It's 2,000 gold lead for the Scarabs, but do you feel like they are racing against a clock here? You've got a double Hunter composition. Do you need to see more in the first 10 minutes, or are we right on track?
I think the Solar Scarabs, even in an even late game state, it's not like 6-4, even 7-3 odds for the Oni Warriors. It's a strong composition come late game, but it's incredibly high execution. It's not double Hunter with an Athena or Ymir. It's a double Hunter with Fafnir, which means you're shredding objectives. That's super easy. It's because Fire Giant and Gold Fury doesn't run away from you. It's a whole lot of single target CC from the Warriors. Dazzling Offensive gonna have to do a whole lot of work if you want this comp to work out. Whereas the Solar Scarabs, it's standard, top to bottom. You got 2 ways to initiate, both AoE CC, a standard mage out of mid, so those Rainfire just going to poke out pretty consistently or be the burst damage that you need as well. I'm not so certain the Solar Scarabs are feeling much pressure on the clock, especially considering it is still a lead.
Oni Warriors may be their best selves as far as strength goes later in the game, but have a lot to do to realize it. Scary D transforms, dashes forward, landfall. Only has the land, no falling Oni Warriors from the sky on the other side. So I admire the attempt. Really what it does is buy space for this. Pyromancer for the Solar Scarabs as the Oni Warriors split the map. They'll keep Vote over on left. He's actually going to channel it back here. No wave to farm. Uninterested in damage on the tower. And the Scarabs now setting a really nice pace for themselves in this game. Actually had bled down a little bit. Experience a bit close. And you get the feeling, Miff, here around the 12-minute mark. This first Gold Fury carries a bit more weight than usual.
It could. If the Oni Warriors get it, we're back to an even state. If the Solar Scarabs get it, we're starting to approach the point of the game where experience may be a little bit less important than gold, and especially if that lead starts to bleed into the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 mark. So the Solar Scarabs would absolutely love to grab this Fury, keep the Oni Warriors guessing, keep them looking elsewhere on the map to find their own farm. As of now, one good pick, just one for the Oni Warriors, could lead to the gold. That's the nature of a double hunter Fafnir composition. You really do make short work of those objectives. But as far as finding that pick, we haven't seen too many proactive plays from QvoFred just yet. He hasn't been ganking on map. It's more so, okay, the Scarabs are on my blue, I need to get there. Or they're on the back camp, so I need to get there. Hasn't been looking for his own pick or own ganks. Maybe Netrioid a decent target for it. If Snoopy keeps dashing as he has, pretty aggressively in mid, could be another way in, but this Nemesis lacking the hard CC on her own, it just makes it very difficult to execute on, especially against a composition like this from the Scarabs. I mean, so many of them are just incredibly safe. Hurriwind has the leap, Netrioid, Aegis built into his kit if he jumps into a wall, Snoopy with that dash. I don't blame him. Fred's got a hard time finding targets.
Collapse happening over towards the left. Both teams may end up just slipping by one another, but no, QvoFred takes the initial burst. Hurriwind leaping in towards him. Now NeilMah under threat, but tanky target. Use the beads on the pole from Sanford Soccer, so gravity surge down. Lots of CC, though, making its way in. Netrioid has joined the fight, but he is away from the rest of his team. He's got to roll away. NeilMah's able to jump out. Scary D eyeing a knock-up. And NeilMah's dodged it all. He's lived far longer than he should have, but he ends up dying nonetheless. Knock-up from Scary D, doesn't matter. Nika reinitiates with the dazzling offensive. How about the snipes from Vote? The last one hits, and it's Snoopy erupting under the damage from the Rama. QvoFred slips the noose out the back door. Netrioid left burning. All the magical damage flies in as well. Vote on a double kill. Hurriwind left running. It's a roll in. Could be a third. Vote hits it, triple kill for Vote, and out of nowhere, the Oni Warriors fly into game 2.
The Solar Scarabs dive into that back line. It's Scary D in first, and this is what we were talking about earlier, Dave. It's a squishy build for the Cucullin. You've got lifesteal, sure, you got a Glad Shield, the damage output's there. He generates threat, but the turnaround potential of the Oni Warriors rings true. The target selection from the Solar Scarabs is, let's deal with NeilMah. Got to get him done first. Nika's dove us. We got to deal with him. When you're looking at the front line that much, a double hunter draft feels pretty good if they're free casting the entire time. Dardez and Vote end that fight essentially with full HP to fight up against the last 3 of the Solar Scarabs, and you are just not matching that DPS. The Oni Warriors from the brink fight back in. I had said if a Gold Fury goes their way, we're back to even. I didn't think they were going to de-aside the Scarabs. It's actually the Oni Warriors in an advantage state. And the largest experience gap of the game at that? The Warriors looking real good. Alarm bells ringing now for the Solar Scarabs because that is a massive, debilitating mental hit.
Yeah, Doug, I'd love to see net worth first because I want to check where Nika and Scary D have now ended up. So Nika, about 400 gold behind Scary D.
Still big.
Which is decent. However, when you consider the investment that the Solar Scarabs sent to that side of the map early on, you would hope it'd be a bit bigger at this point in the game, you know, just shy of a tier 1 item. So Nika's been in a really good spot.
It's just the chalice diff.
Yeah, that's right. The chalice and the bit of the healing that Scary D can do. XP-wise, actually now Nika has taken the lead. And so if you're looking at all of the culmination of the early pressure, a chalice is now the difference between Nika and Scary D. 1-3-1 doesn't look great, but looked fantastic in that previous fight. And now it's the arrival of Vote into this set. In game 1, he did his job. But here in game 2, he's taken a fight over now. Looked fantastic in the Oni Warriors' earlier set this weekend. And if you're starting to spin up those wheels, if Vote, look at that menace in the bottom right of the screen. Just threatening as all get out.
You know what his name was before Vote, right?
I was actually trying to bait you into telling me because I forgot what the...
Let's vote NBK.
Yeah, right. I forgot what the NBK was.
Natural Born Killer.
I couldn't remember if it was something like bad and I couldn't say it on air.
And you were trying to bait me
Yes,
into saying
because I know you would before
That's
I would.
awful. You are a terrible coworker.
What do you mean? I'm the best.
Okay.
I'm the best coworker. We're going to be roommates in about 3 days.
Okay. People don't need to know that.
I asked him for 1 king bed, and so hopefully that's...
Stop it. Talk about Smite. This is worlds on the line.
If you're getting flustered, just hang in there with me. Oni Warriors then vote the Natural Born Killer on a 3-kill streak. He's picked up a tier 2 Odi bow, and that passive will help limit maybe some of the blinks in from Scary D and Sanford Soccer, especially as you start to funnel into these jungle fights.
Interesting.
Scarabs, though, while they did have a nice gold lead, it's more stabilized now. They're the Oni Warriors, the ones who have won the recent, the big, the overwhelming team fight. Still the Solar Scarabs with plenty of questions left to ask. Everyone in the game, except for Hurriwind, who's at level 11, and Scary D has beads as well. So a lot of those individual instances of CC, you need to start seeing them before some of these fights.
Fortunately for the Solar Scarabs, I think you can still say, look, our composition is strong. We're not that far behind in power spikes either. Snoopy just finished up the Soul Reaver, the burst potential now starting to appear in the builds. It's just about target selection. It's who you're hitting first. If the Solar Scarabs can make contact with, really it's Vote now. I was going to say Dardez because he's easier to kill as an AMC, but you gotta address Vote. If it's the Hunters, you're feeling pretty good. You hear that ring, that Pyromancer going down? You're not feeling so great about it. The Solar Scarabs should just disengage from here. The Oni Warriors, with a bit of pressure, see the Solar Scarabs pull Pyro, reset, and the Warriors say, well, if you're not gonna, we will. Take it for themselves.
Clean around objectives, especially with this type of composition, very important. Now Nika strong enough, I think, can scurry away from the damage that Sanford Soccer and Scary D trying to apply. Fire Giant might look like it's been pulled, but just walked through by the Scarabs. Snoopy got off to a great start here this game, but slowed down a bit since. This Agni, really, if you imagine this, when we start to get into the slim jungle corridors, raining fire from the back line, with a couple squishier targets to look for, is going to be important. But that, I mean, you walk forward, you take half your health and damage. Makes you start to think about your positioning when you're hoping to get Dardez a bit more worried about his. Meeting of the minds here behind the red buff. Knock up on a NeilMah and a pull, but what's there on the other side? Beads from Snoopy, good burst damage. Netrioid might join the fray. He's used his ultimate. Said we'll go back by red buff. NeilMah now in trouble. Transformation well timed. Should be able to jump out and away. Pops the frenzy. Sanford Soccer, 1 snipe away. Vote hits it again, and the snipes starting to connect. Dardez on his own in the back line. Why wouldn't he be? Because the Stinger is there on a Netrioid. He'll rejoin the rest of his team. He's not concerned about Hurriwind. Oni Warriors have won 1 fight, and now they're looking to go back to back. Though still damage there has set Nika running.
I misspoke earlier. I said the Solar Scarabs had learned their lesson. Don't focus NeilMah. They've done it again, Dave. Sanford Soccer pulls NeilMah in. Neil strips the beads from Snoopy, starts giggling on the way out, and the chase continues, and the Oni Warriors just punish him for it once more. The target cannot be this Fafnir. It is one of the most elusive, evasive Guardians in the game. The longest leap, a built-in Aegis, and then the longest leap again. So difficult to shut him down. Even maintains the beads through it all. NeilMah keeping his head above water. Now it's the Oni Warriors once more, who could pull the Fire Giant. Netrioid does not have access to ultimate on respawn, so it would be a numbers advantage, at least for a little while. But instead, an easier target. The tier 1 on right, that'll fall down and it'll go quick. Solar Scarabs can only watch on from a distance. Keep your eyes on vision. I think that's pretty important. A couple Sentry Wards in the pockets of the Solar Scarabs should be able to work their way back into that pit. Wards here or there means that Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs have got pretty decent knowledge of what's happening around the Fire Giant. Otherwise, the Warriors, the onus is on them now. We're in the late portion of the game. You've hit a bunch of really significant power spikes. Dardez has burst potential through the roof, going through that Titan's Bane tree. Vote's got a little bit of AoE DPS as well. I think now it's time to group up and force the Solar Scarabs to put up a defense.
Yeah, think about how important those snipes have been in the last few fights, where whether it's finishing off targets or half-healthing one of the carries immediately. It's on it. Oh God, you know, those momentary moments of disengage and immunity, whether you're talking about Neil on the transformation or Vote, who's able to go up in the sky on the snipes. The Scarabs trying to find an initiation, and then it's just a quick pause from Vote when he goes up to the sky. A quick pause from NeilMah when he transforms. Has made the Scarabs have to think heavily. Great from Scary D, but nobody is pulled back in. Scary chasing down the back line, hasn't found him though. But the surge from the Scarabs, it's overwhelming. It sent QvoFred running. NeilMah can't transform your way out of this one. What has happened? It's Scary D who's happened. Snoopy though has been stunned. And both teams will have to settle for one.
Scary D puts on his cape and makes the hero play. A 3 or 4 man knock up there is what cost Vote his life. Now it's the Solar Scarabs on the Fire Giant. Dardez is healthy and he's got damage.
It's the Solar Scarabs who are still tanking it. Be careful. Dardez, though, without Stinger, can poke him down. Now the Oni Warriors, the team who have picked up FG. Hurriwind sticks around. Snoopy has range here. Snoopy has a chance to steal. Snoopy won't do it. Fire Giant confirmed by the Oni Warriors. You might lose NeilMah in trade. They are happy to do so. Oni Warriors pick up right where the Scarabs leave him off and get Fire Giant on 3.
And it's the Oni Warriors. Just see the Solar Scarabs lose the thread. They had pulled the fire, then reset way too far. The Warriors given too much time, and now an overstay?
Oh my God, Nika is looking scary on this pick. This is when Nika looks terrifying, when he can walk forward. I don't care if he's 3-3-3. He's 10-0 in his mind, and he's dashing into Hurriwind. Oni Warriors go +2 on the FG. 2 for QvoFred. High fives across the booth. And the Warriors, they're smelling a 2-0 lead.
The Warriors can now start pushing down all these towers remaining on the map. Haven't even needed to reset themselves. Group up, push down left. Nobody's taking the 2-man core of Nika and QvoFred. It would take a concentrated effort from the Solar Scarabs to slow them down. But that's not the only place pressure's happening on the map. Vote's pushing down mid. Should be joined by Dardez very shortly. And it's the Solar Scarabs once more who take a small win, take a couple of picks. You kill Vote, you get Neil down, remove their Fire Giants, overstay, moving in towards that tier 1 tower. Nika able to chase him out and just has so much damage in the build that really could have done the majority of it on his own, but doesn't have to because the rest of the Warriors were at his flank. The Solar Scarabs have got decent base defense though, Dave. It's a standard mage. I love it. I love when Agni can put up a defense in situations like that. It's poke from a range, ranged initiation. The stun can set up for landfall. Haven't seen massive landfalls from Hurriwind so far this game. Should be a little bit easier when these team fights simplify in these enclosed spaces around tier 2s and Phoenixes. Otherwise, Netrioid won't be able to really utilize the Living Nightmare, the ultimate. Except for the slow, which is decent on chase down, but otherwise I'm looking at Scary D, I'm looking at Hurry, I'm looking at Snoopy. They've really got to step it up here.
I wonder if the Scarabs feel like they should have gotten more off the big pull from Scary D. Vote is sent back, but again, it might just be NeilMah who gets traded out. He does, he gets pulled back, but again, this is what's happened time and time again. NeilMah's hit the pause button. D transforms, ends up dying, but now QvoFred's back behind the Solar Scarabs. The rest of his team has actually left him there. They kept applying damage to the Phoenix. What I thought actually was a nice delay from NeilMah turned into an overstay from QvoFred, and the rest of the Oni Warriors left scurrying. It's only Dardez and Nika maintaining the buff.
Yeah, I didn't see how Fred even ended up back there. NeilMah as well had access to beads, I believe. Likely could have immuned that gravity surge. Maybe a bit of a red herring in the last couple of fights. Was so used to getting pulled in and saying, hey, this is good for me. Does so once more, takes a bit too much damage and falls down. The Oni Warriors keep Fire Giant on one of their carries, so could keep up pressure. And with that left side Phoenix so weak, could even try and attempt once more to knock that one down once QvoFred rejoins the land of the living. Yeah, besides that, tier 2's not bad. Gold Fury up as well to extend your lead even further. The Oni Warriors in a very good position still, but the Solar Scarabs have done a lot to slow down that Fire Giant. What could have been a disastrous situation has extended into a longer match in a bit more of an even state. That said, I don't think we see NeilMah make that same mistake. He's beats in the next one.
I say this with nothing but love for NeilMah. Do you think the Fafnir is just like the perfect NeilMah pick? Because if you get caught out, you can like take a pause and transform and jump out to the rest of your team. Like
between that and like Jing Shan.
I'm thinking if there's a Ymir here, this is one of the like 06 or NeilMah games. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. with how he's been positioning in some of these team fights as well. My man is up there.
I love that guy.
You can accuse him of many things. Cowardice is not in his dictionary.
That's a great way of looking at it. So the Fafnir might get a little NeilMah boost here, and he's looked good on it. Obviously facilitates the double hunter composition wonderfully, plus Frenzy, plus Shogun's Kusari. So the Solar Scarabs myth, we've seen the one big initiation from Scary D around fire. And I didn't catch it either. Sam wasn't in range, or a pull got beadsed out, something like that. Ended up just at a 1-for-1 trade, and then an awkward tug of war.
It's a good one, though. Got the vote for Scary. You take that trade every day.
But then the Oni Warriors were able to pick back up the Fire Giant and confirm it anyway. So that's maybe miscoordination from the Scarabs. Good news for the Solar Scarabs. Not too much of it here in game number 2. You're down about 6,000, as Doug has showed us. You're going to regroup as a team here. All your Phoenixes left on the map. Can send a Trebuchet if you're interested, though it might not find much value because we're going to be hanging out over here anyway. An opportunity to contest, at least here at the 27-minute mark.
It is. The Oni Warriors can't have Scary D do what he did in the previous fight. If it's another 4-man knockup, the game's a bit closer now. The damage output from Snoopy much higher. Could really punish you in a situation like that.
Nice.
Bubble off vote means that Hurriwind now has a pretty decent target for the landfall. Keep my eyes on him. Steps forward. Doesn't connect. Just a bit more poke. The Oni Warriors giving up a lot of space here, Dave. This should give a little bit more vision over towards the Solar Scarabs. No sentries in pocket, so vision out from the Warriors will remain. 1 sentry left for Nika means that he can move into the pit if he so chooses. Try and strip a little bit off of the Solar Scarabs. But neither team showing a propensity to actually pulling the Fire Giant. And I think rightfully so. The Oni Warriors may have a lead, but not so much he can just do it in their face.
Snoopy can follow up some damage, but all the damage is on to Scary D, and why wouldn't Vote hit every snipe? Solo Laner dropped, no chance to use his ultimate. And now the chase down begins. Oni Warriors waltzing into the Scarab side of the jungle, but be careful. The fadeaway damage from Snoopy can be fatal if you let it pick up too much momentum. NeilMah will survive this time, as he has time and time again this game. 1 pick is it. Looks like Scary D might have actually gotten that ult off. Either way, didn't make a difference. The Oni Warriors find a clean 1. Teleport ready to go. Should Nika 1.
Dave, Neil is the only one on his team to have upgraded his beads. That removes a bit of cooldown from it. He refuses to use them. He's gotten pulled by every gravity surge
and he's still alive. He's happy to do it.
Yeah. I upgraded him in case I want to, but I don't.
He's not worried about the gravity surge. It's the stun from Snoopy that he's waiting to use his beads on. It's the Agni stun that'll pull out the beads. Maybe a pull from Hurriwind. We do know one thing, and that's Fire Giant's low. Sam for Soccer, a miracle play. Scary D, he's teleported in back behind. He's found Dardez. And so we're on a split engagement here. But Sam for Soccer's got to leap up and over the wall. Scary D can't finish a kill, but Netrioid sure can. Sam goes back in, but Dardez backs away. QvoFred has cleaned up Snoopy as well, but Netrioid on a double. We're trading blows on the right side of the map. Both teams lose a jungle. Nika down for Warriors. Snoopy gone for the Scarabs.
Scary D resustaining a bit. Netrioid healthy as well. Enhanced Fire Giant pulled by the Scarabs. The Oni Warriors on the retreat. Dardez forced to use the Stinger. Should be the end of this engagement. A split fight to be sure.
No, they're not. No, they're
not.
No,
they can't. They literally cannot. It has to be a reset. Where are the timers at? About on par with each other. That fight happens simultaneously. 2 engagements on the map. Solar Scarabs, though, I think happy to take that split fight. Sam for Soccer makes a difficult decision in that engagement. Do I reinitiate, risk my life? Yes, does so, trades it, but make sure that at least one more pays on the Oni Warriors. The Solar Scarabs, they're scrappy. They're sticking in there, and they've bought themselves yet another defense attempt around the fire.
Myth, I'm scared.
Of what?
This game. The enhanced Fire Giant fight.
It's the best of 5. We got so many more.
Oh, we do. Or maybe we only have 1 more. Who knows? All I know is that the Scarabs and this never give up attitude all year long, whether the rosters looked like this or very different at the start of the year, it's been a resilient team, and they've had to find ways to win. And if nothing else, despite what has been a crazy lead from the Oni Warriors, have drawn the line It's right around this Fire Giant. I thought that teleport way in behind from Scary D could have made a massive difference in that fight, and it did in the sense that it pulled the Oni Warriors back, but a couple low health bars, lifesteal working overtime on the previous fight. Hurriwind, landfall, no good. Bit of initiation now missing for the Scarabs.
Hurry probably just wants to wait on some stuns for the next one. These landfalls have not been finding their value. If you just allow Snoopy to start it up for you, it would be a little bit easier. Could even just utilize it as a wall. Can't blame Hurry for trying, though. The Oni Warriors were a bit not grouped up, a bit spread out in that jungle, so a pull likely would have led to a pick. Speaking of, NeilMah, he's gone in.
Scary D, nice backstep. Knockups only on the NeilMah. Beads used onto the gravity surge. And the Scarabs use so much. That's their initiation. QvoFred's the only one on the Warriors who has not used his, or who did use his ultimate. Warriors now massive advantage on right.
Maybe able to push into the Fire Giant. All you got to do is generate threat, and the Solar Scarabs will show up. They will try and defend. Now would be a phenomenal opportunity to look for it. But even then, Hurry already halfway back to his ultimate, Sam for Soccer, in the exact same position.
Yeah, cooldown goes hard.
Yeah, up to 40%. You know, that's pretty good. The Oni Warriors had to spend that 40% of time just walking back from base. It's a hard reset.
Wow,
maybe the biggest difference, Scary D doesn't have his rage stacked up anymore. Could be a while till we see that transformation.
NeilMah does not have beads, however, so this time, if a big gravity surge connects, well, he'd be able to maybe transform before a gravity surge pulse comes in, but something he'll have to watch out for. Bubble onto one. Scary D forward. Ult does not connect from Scary, who is searching for the front line. And a leap away, strong enough. Again, initiation now missing from the Solar Scarabs.
Good stun.
Stun onto Snoopy, bit of poke damage from the Oni Warriors as well. NeilMah transforms. That tends to be when these teams want to fight. How about a dazzling offensive in from Nika? But where's all this damage come from? He's not sure.
Good pull.
But Vote's on a killing spree. Has shredded Scary D. And now again, this Colin's going to be out of the fight. Vote pokes a bit with the snipes. Oni Warriors drop down from the sky with the one-man advantage.
Scary D's got a teleport on respawn, so it is truly only 50 seconds left till he joins the engagement. The Oni Warriors got to make use of that time.
Oh man, Nika starting to go crazy. He's found Netrioid, who's forced to use the disengage. But Nika, you can't just walk through all this. You need your boys, and the boys are here. QvoFred follows his solo laner into battle and is traded with Netrioid, double kill.
Sam?
But Snoopy adds the first. Sam for Soccer's got to go big for the Solar Scarabs here. His team has lost a few. Oni Warriors lose 2 in trade, though. These have not been clean engagements, neither team with a big advantage.
What a massive chase from the Oni Warriors.
Oh, they're
Keep
going.
both hunters alive. It'd go quick. They can hold on to the fire in the Solar Scarabs.
Sam and Hurry.
I don't think they get there in time, Dave.
I don't know if they have time. It's down to half HP. Sam has got a sprint over here. Hurriwind
That's it.
does as well. They will not arrive in time, and the Oni Warriors get EFG. I suppose if you're going to have 3 members of your team survive, it's 2 carries and a support and a Fafnir with a Shogun's Kusari. That allows you to melt the EFG and get the big objective. And it's still on your mid laner, your AD carry, and your support. Siege now can begin. 2 tier 2 towers and an open left Phoenix.
Solar Scarabs, though, their defense not weak. We've seen it a couple times around the Fire Giant. Now have map advantage in that it will be likely around their own Phoenix. NeilMah just can't die here. Shouldn't and won't.
He's Fafnir, you know?
He's so safe. He still has those beads and the transform. Yeah, he's all right.
And he might even use those beads.
Second time this game.
Doesn't want to. Doesn't have to this time. And look at that health just fully regain. Solar Scarabs back to full as far as team members on map go. Been a lot of damage from Dardez in these last few engagements. He's up over 30,000, next highest just over 20. Netrioid's felt like he's been under a lot of pressure here in this game. 5-3 and 5 on the Chernobog. Nika's done a good job of starting off the rundown, but we have seen the Amaterasu start to burn somewhat quickly as the itemization catches up, which it has. Everyone's 6 slotted. Now you're just seeing if anyone sells off their starter items, picks up a full true 6th item, but numbers-wise, Miff, it's really the Enhanced Fire Giant and A couple upgraded relics that make the difference.
Yeah, those relics could be significant too. Temporal beads for Dardez, Neil, and Vote gives you over additional CDR. Still waiting on a couple of beads. Nika and Qvo holding off on their own. Upgraded Blink from QvoFred would have been big, but we won't get a chance to see it this time around. All the Oni Warriors need to do here is survive Scary D's initiation. The fights that have gone well from the Scarabs have been off the back of that ultimate from Scary D, followed up by the Gravity Surge. If you can avoid that, a whole lot of it starts to become a lot easier. Things start to line up. Landfall could be a bit easier to find in some of these smaller corridors, especially when the game simplifies around Phoenix defense. Hurriwind can be a difference maker here.
Can also create the corridors. Hurriwind can, depending on where the landfall goes, funnel the Oni Warriors into certain areas of the map just for short durations. It's Nika and Scary D over in mid, QvoFred and Sanford Soccer mirroring one another, and then the other three on either side of the map on left.
Right side, Enhanced Minions already starting to push in. Might be able to take out that tower on its own, so the Oni Warriors creep up pressure on the left. NeilMah transform, go button, but he's only got Vote here.
Scary D, Salmon leaps forward. He's sent the knockup out as well, but hasn't hit anyone. A bit of poke damage from Snoopy, hits its target. Sam has lost half of his health in the meantime. Mid lane Phoenix gone. An ult over from Netrioid, but NeilMah taken low in the meantime. He's been tanking up this Phoenix. And both mid and left Phoenix is gone. The Solar Scarabs myth a bit out of sorts here. Send one to mid and then jump back to left. But before they've been able to arrive, mid and left both taken down.
Truth be told, Dave, I went cross-eyed trying to track that offense from the Oni Warriors as well. So no surprise the Solar Scarabs caught a bit off guard. We got bird's eye view, and I still couldn't figure out exactly where that aggression was coming from. 3-stack in mid from the Warriors, able to slowly whittle down that Phoenix. Looked to me like NeilMah almost just used that Draconic transformation as a distraction, maybe telling the Solar Scarabs, hey, we're going to push here. A couple of members rotate over, and things start to line up once more. Only one bird, one tower between the Oni Warriors and the completely exposed Titan of the Solar Scarabs. This game's been going long. It's a much better shot at defense here in Game 2 than it was previously in Game 1. The Solar Scarabs just really strong in itemization. It's about play on field. Maybe a couple of potions separating each team now. The Oni Warriors will wait for this next Fire Giant, I suppose. 1 minute left on respawn. And with the timing of those Phoenixes falling, the Solar Scarabs will have no reprieve. It'll be a whole long while before they're back up. So Enhanced Minion Waves in both lanes, plus Trebuchet down right. The Oni Warriors going to generate pressure passively on the map. Use that time, use that knowledge of where the Solar Scarabs are pushing to move into their jungle, drop some wards, establish vision. The Warriors playing it slow, they're playing it right. The Solar Scarabs, it's tough to fight into this because they can't walk anywhere without the Warriors knowing about it.
Yeah, allow those fire minions to just build up for the next 20 or so seconds. Hurriwind actually gets the beads off of Vote. There's no Fire Giant here, and the Scarabs want to go. This is your game-ending fight. Scary D again, the first one to get melted by the Oni Warriors and Sanford Soccer. He won't find the roundabout gank this time. QvoFred and Nika have read him like a book. Again, a double for QvoFred, who has been on it in these last couple team fights. It is now simple for the Oni Warriors. It is a 5 versus 3 in the base, broken open from the Solar Scarabs.
I'm surprised the Oni Warriors are even showing this much respect to the Scarabs. It could be an opportunity to just walk down the base. It's 40 seconds left after the Fire Giant falls on nearest respawn, so might as well put that EFG on everybody's belt. Solar Scarabs try and take the fight before the waves start to move into their base, realizing we haven't got time to play around. It has to be now. Scary D in first and out first as well as the Oni Warriors approach the throne room.
Snoopy has a lot to do here. Nika will prevent it from happening. Netrioid, Snoopy, Hurriwind, 3 that you want alive. You've got damage and you got tankiness. Do you have enough of it though? There's nothing on the map keeping this Titan strong. Oni Warriors once again walk into the Solar Scarabs base, and it's simple. Here in Game 2, we go 40, but the result's the same. Oni Warriors, they're on World's Point.
Solar Scarabs look so good throughout that early game as well. Remember, it was a 5-0 start, I believe, for the Solar Scarabs until it was a 5-man team fight swing for the Oni Warriors. And from there, they hold on to their lead throughout, just slowly working their way through the objectives, going through the Fire Giant, pushing into these towers. And I think it all comes down to one common theme in every early and mid-game team fight. Gravity Surge hits NeilMah, NeilMah hits everybody, and then the rest of the Oni Warriors roll through. Gotta work on that target selection.
And I think it's such a great point. The baiting from NeilMah, even when NeilMah didn't get hit by the gravity surge, felt like Neil will tell you it was calculated. Him getting caught out in the jungle a couple of times. Who am I to say it wasn't?
Looked calculated to me.
Then
Worked out.
he would transform, he would jump out, and it's that moment of hesitation, whether it was NeilMah or whether it was Vote going up into the snipes, that moment of hesitation turned a lot of that early game. Team fighting later on became difficult. I feel for Scary, desperately salmon leaping in, desperately looking for knockups, and just gets deleted time and time again. It's Divine Judgment, it's Stinger, and it's one dead Kokulin. Oni Warriors, they're on World's Point now. 3 straight needed from the Solar Scarabs. What did you say? Journey of 1,000 steps starts with the first?
That's right. Well, I didn't say that first. I'm just quoting another
Mifflin
guy.
said that himself. He wrote it down. Journey of 3 steps starts with 1 for the Solar Scarabs. Maybe in Game 3 they'll get it done.
Oni Warriors are now 1 game away from securing the final spot at the SMITE World Championship, punching their ticket and getting to rest for a few more days before they join the other 7 teams that have already made it there. And while these 2 teams battle it out in preparation for their SWC, one way that you can prepare and get ready to celebrate for not only the SWC, but year 10 in general for SMITE is to log on to SMITE and play some games. If you play just 10 games of SMITE from now until January 23rd, you get all these great things that are shown on your screen. You get some battle pass, you get your choice of a free unlimited skin, you get a bunch of boosters, some free gods as well. A lot of great things, and all you got to do is play 10 games of SMITE between now and January 23rd to earn all these free rewards towards our Year 10 celebration. So make sure you take advantage of this promotion right now. And I know that we don't have a graphic for it, but I'll also throw it out from now until the end of the SMITE World Championship on January 15th. There is also a gem sale out there, so if you want to get some other stuff, go ahead and grab that. I think it's up to 33% off for gems in that regard. So make sure you take advantage of both of those great deals happening right now. The Oni Warriors, though, Charlie, 1 game away from making it to the SMITE World Championship, 1 game away from sending the Solar Scarabs home packing and ending their Season 9 career. And what a great turnaround that the Warriors had in that early game. I like to think that maybe that one fight around the Gold Fury where NeilMah buys 15 or so seconds with his life in order for his team to rally back around, and then a deicide after, really felt like the turning point of the game for the Warriors.
Yeah, that fight in particular got Vote a lot of extra farm, which he definitely needed. And then after that, when you get Vote off to a good start on the Rama, you know he's not missing snipes. You know he's going to be absolutely shredding. However, the Solar Scarabs really were driving that game for a bit off the back of some great engages from Scary D. The Kakolin was working extremely well until the Oni Warriors figured out, hey, once this Kakolin jumps, why don't we just Nemesis ult him? Sometimes the Stinger hits, sometimes it doesn't, but he becomes a lot less tanky. And that really was the change-up that the Oni Warriors had to make, and once they did, they were driving once again in this game. I thought the Solar Scarabs wouldn't be able to get knocked off that rhythm, but a triple kill towards this Gold Fury really was exactly what the Oni Warriors needed to push that Goldie in your favor. Look how quickly Scary D melts. That was, you just hear the ult immediately, and he's gone. He was not tanky enough to withstand the double 100 composition here of the Oni Warriors.
And this quadruple auto-attacker composition you talked all about and you hyped up during the picks and bans, well, it lived up to that hype, Charlie. I mean, every single team fight was just going the way of the Oni Warriors pretty much almost exclusively after that one little 14-minute skirmish by the Gold Furies. Solar Scarabs had some fight-back potential as well, had a couple of moments where they were really shining through, but really just felt like, as you said, every single time that Scary D would blink into the backline to try and get a fight started or really try and initiate with a big ultimate, it was just an immediate turnaround by the Oni Warriors, whether he ate just the ult from Qvo or just the one from Dardez or a combination of the two of them. Felt like Scary D really couldn't live long enough in those team fights to make a big enough impact for the team.
And that's the thing. You also have to consider how much prot shred the Oni Warriors had. It really didn't matter what Scary D was able to build. You know, he had plenty of physical defense. It was just Stinger into Divine Judgment. So much prot shred. So it's scary that we're in a time where maybe taking the AMC away from Dardez could be on the minds here of the Solar Scarabs, because that god has essentially left everyone else's mind except for Dardez, but you don't want to give that much prot shred to the Oni Warriors.
And you don't want to let this happen again as we jump into the picks and bans for game number 3. The Warriors, once again, only a single game away from qualifying in the last spot for the SWC, where we already have 7 of our other teams. Remember, we had 4 from the Phase 3 playoffs make their way through, and then 3 so far from this weekend. 2 of those being SMITE Challenger Circuit teams. Our amateur league has made huge waves in this event and has now forced the hand of the SPL to only be able to send 2 total representatives of the 4. And who will those ones be as it continues to go through? Solar Scarabs now have to make a reverse sweep against the Oni Warriors if they have any hopes of keeping their SWC chances alive, of being able to make it to that spot. And as the bans have begun to roll through, Dodgy, the Morgan, and Fafnir, the call for the Solar Scarabs. Opposite side, Vulcan, Cernunnos, and Ishtar banned by the Oni Warriors. This does leave open the Naja, but something earlier that we saw was being first banned by the Scarabs, maybe saying that maybe Sam isn't really willing to go towards that pick right away.
Might be the call. Looks like Rama is going to be the case here for the Solar Scarabs. They don't want to give that pick over to Vote. And I tend to agree with the performance he just had. That does leave open the Nemesis and the AMC that we were just talking about. Not like it has to be forced out, of course. I think that the Maui could be something that is highly prioritized in this situation, despite the fact that NeilMah in the pregame interview didn't say he put too much value to it. Maybe just baiting us a little bit so that they let the Oni Warriors grab this pick, and they'll take it. But will they grab the Naja in return? And they will. That's going to be a fair bit of beads burn already in the top 2 there for the Warriors.
Yeah, between the Maui and the Naja, dangerous for any carry that may not have a relic or some form of immunity to try and get away from the 2 of those there. And also to emphasize the importance of this one, not only would these 4 teams from this weekend qualify through, remember at the end of the show, and we'll talk about more about it as we get closer to it, we'll have a draft show from the 4 teams that did make it during the Phase 3 playoffs. Remember those, the Kings, the Leviathans, the Dragons, and the Bolts. In that order, we'll get to pick from the teams that qualified this weekend to the SWC to see who their quarterfinal matchups will be. That'll be happening at the end of the day after the broadcast, or after the main broadcast has gone through. But catching back up on the picks, the Sylvanus, something that we've seen so many times, and really feels like this is, I can't even just call, you know, like a Hurriwind thing, because this is something that Inbound was doing for the Solar Scarabs to find wins whenever he was a support on this team. Now it seems to have translated along with Hurriwind. But Sylvanus and Poseidon, the next 2 lock-ins for the Scarabs.
The way I see Sylvanus is when you're losing and you're a support player that wants to flex your mechanics, Sylvanus is always a pick you can go to, right? You can certainly get canceled out, you can get focused, you can be the target of aggression, but if you're hitting those pulls consistently, the non-setup, non-root pulls, sometimes people aren't expecting it, they don't beads in time, you can force out relics, things like that. And I'm thinking that that's what Hurriwind wants to go for here. He realizes his season and his attempts at Worlds could end if this set goes 3-0 here, this next game, and he just wants to do as much as he can. Sylvanus is going to be some good setup, especially if he's on point with those pulls. They've got the Kraken as well, which tells me you could really focus towards more beads burn, right? Because early on, if you're beadsing, you know, a Hunbat's ult, for example, you're not going to be able to crack in that ultimate, Aegis that ultimate. So there's a lot of different ways that the Solar Scarabs can use this aggression to their favor if they want to try and get aggressive early.
Danzaburou, final pick for the Warriors as the Bans have flown by. Mercury and a Wheelish, 2 signature picks of Sam for Soccer banned away by the Oni Warriors. Opposite side, some focus into Dardez, as you were mentioning previously. Maybe banning this AMC away, something that only Dardez is really playing at this stage of the game. And the Hera, another one that feels almost exclusive to him. We have seen a little bit out of a couple of other mid laners in the league, but really feels like Dardez is the only one trying to vie for that god. Oni Warriors, with their 4th pick, do go for the Bellona, so that leaves one more option available for potentially Dardez on the Oni Warriors with that Danzaburou earlier, likely slanted over towards Vote. Now for the Solar Scarabs, you've got your big burst damage to the Kraken, you've got your setup, and maybe some of your beads pulling potential from the Sylvanus. Charlie, what else would you like to see out of the Solar Scarabs in this top 2?
I mean, I'm really curious as to what Sam for Soccer goes to here with Worlds on the line. You'd think the Hunbats doesn't have a great matchup. There's a lot of beads, and it looks like it's going to be the Pele. Someone that can make use out of these relics being down. The Kraken still can get value there, especially if you're looking towards whatever this mage pick is going to be, if it will be a mage pick. There's not that much prot shred to really facilitate a double hunter composition in this area. And the Guan Yu, plenty of healing on board for the Solar Scarabs. You got to think Curse Donk and Anti-Heal. Definitely a priority as the Kolkin is being hovered. Switched up, though. The Chronos. Late game slanted. Doesn't have a great matchup into the Kraken. Early on, yeah, you can just rewind the Kraken and immune that damage. But once the Kraken starts one-shotting, you better be channeling that rewind before it even gets sent out, or you're using Aegis in that case.
So we've seen a little bit of diversity with the Chronos builds over the course of the weekend. We've seen the double stacking Book of Thoth Warlocks really gear heavily towards the late game, mostly out of the EU teams. We've also seen the very early style of power build. You get Book of Thoth into maybe some flat pen immediately after that one to try and follow up and kind of get the ball rolling a little bit earlier. Do you imagine with the Oni Warriors with this kind of a composition that maybe with this Chronos you try and gear towards a little bit earlier style of a build?
Yeah, you can try. I mean, you're definitely going Book of Thoth, you have to imagine. Divine Ruin, I'm thinking might even be more prioritized than Book of Thoth up against Guan Yu, Sylvanus, and the Pele, but probably Book of Thoth, Divine. I don't imagine a Warlocks comes through unless the Oni Warriors are really feeling that confident that they're going to make it to late game, and they're going to make it to late game just fine. it would also help you live through that Kraken every once in a while. But Dardez likes to give active early. He likes to make those clutch rotations. He sometimes rotates out a bit earlier if he can, if he has a character with movement speed like Chronos does. So I don't imagine double stacking is going to be the way here.
Yeah, so it's going to be hopefully trying to get a little bit later for the Oni Warriors, trying to let this Chronos get online, let this Danzaburou maybe start to get some of that damage flowing through. Solar Scarabs have a lot of setup with this composition, a lot of burst damage out there for the Solar Scarabs. Charlie, for your money's worth, where's kind of the win condition for the Scarabs composition?
I mean, I'm thinking landing Krakens, of course. That's always going to be the play whenever Poseidon's around, and especially this Pele. I think Sanford Soccer needs to get off to an early start. Despite the fact that the Scarabs have fallen 0-2, I think he's had a good performance throughout the entirety of this set. He just needs to do a bit more for his team. I mean, he's got to drag them if he has to. They need a win here.
Yeah, the Solar Scarabs have got to come up big and at least pump the brakes up against the Oni Warriors to see if they can slow down this momentum, because the Oni Warriors are one game away. The Solar Scarabs have got to drag through 3 games individually in order to make it to the SMITE World Championship, and that is not an easy 3, an easy reverse sweep up against a team like the Oni Warriors. Can the Scarabs start that turnaround right here? Are the Oni Warriors going to close it out in 3? Let's jump in to game number 3 with Dulcin and Mifflin.
NeilMah's been a part of some crazy 5-game sets in his career, so I'm assuming he would like this to not go the distance. 1 away from going back to Worlds. 1 more game for the Oni Warriors. 3 more for the Solar Scarabs, but it's got to start right here, right now, in game number 3, Miff. And look, the Scarabs, they got off to such a good start in game 2, probably feeling like they had an opportunity to win that game. Something to be said for resiliency that the Oni Warriors showed us in our second game. They bring a Chronos, Miff, here into game 3, the Oni Warriors do. Des talked about double stacking, maybe getting power on earlier, things like that. It's been a argued over pick maybe a bit here this weekend. When you got 3 games to play with, maybe you feel like you got something here for Dardez.
Dave, let me ask you a quick question real quick.
Please don't. That's not your job.
Who do you think has had the best showing on Chronos so far this week?
I mean, who's played it? Zeros and Snoopy?
That's right.
Between the two, Zeros.
All right. And here's the thing about Zeros is Chronos. Combined, less than 50,000 damage the entire week. You're not locking in this god.
Okay, but you got to put in context how many games that is.
Like a lot.
50,000 damage, but he's played it once. Like,
he's played it like 4 times,
sure,
maybe 5.
There you go. So
you're not locking it in for the damage output.
Yep.
You're locking it in for what it brings to your siege. You're locking it in for how it affects your fire giant damage, your gold fury damage, your ability to burn these objectives. Maybe even the mental stack of, hey, this guy does scale incredibly hard. I think that Dardez, for the most part, when you talk to him and when you watch him play, loves to get incredibly active. He's an aggressive player through mid. I'm not certain that the Chronos necessarily fits that style.
But might be in a worse spot. Oh my goodness, it's simple. Sanford Soccer. Ooh. That's a chunky tower shot he just took. That caught me off guard. Snoopy and Sam simply walk at QvoFred, and it's a dream start for the Solar Scarabs.
And that's what you do when there's a Chronos in mid. You can ignore this guy. Even when he's hitting you with these abilities from max range, the damage output just simply isn't there. He doesn't have the fight just yet. Sure, he's got a little bit of self-peel or even peel for his allies with the stun, but as far as pressure is concerned, if the Solar Scarabs can keep playing there, it's just going to look good. And give it 15 minutes, Dardez will one-shot you. Until then, not so much.
Until then, you can fight in mid. Nika gets the solo. He calls out Scary and slams the phone. It's a early kill now for the Oni Warriors, right when they needed it. After losing 1 in mid, and Nika on the Bellona is something scary. And what an answer back from the Oni Warriors solo laner.
An emphatic early answer at that. The Solar Scarabs weren't even allowed to celebrate finding first blood before it's answered by the Oni Warriors solo laner. I think you're still okay if you're Scary D. It's not that Breastplate of Valor start that we've seen so often. Instead, down that tower shield tree, gives you a little bit more power. That healing will find a bit of a bonus there as well. Red buff invaded by Snoopy. Just strips that one away in the face of Dardez. I think the Solar Scarabs, they can't shift it up. If Nika is able to keep owning that lane, if he's stealing back camp, stealing blue buff, sure, address him. But I think you can still trust Scary D to hold his own. You just got to keep punishing this Chronos. Play around that lane, run through pressure there. So far, Snoopy's done a good job of leveraging what Sam for Soccer has already accomplished. That red buff invade goes a great way. Just getting the timer, important in of itself, so that Sam for Soccer can be there for the next rotation of it. I think the Scarabs just got to leave Scary on an island.
I want to talk about Vote a bit on this Danzaburou. We might need to continue talking about it because sprint out. Lots of lockdown here between QvoFred and NeilMah. Meditation. Not in this lane. I don't know what it was the heal from Hurriwind. And it was the sprint down that tried to get the Sylvanus away. But a great early rotation to duo here, Miff, from QvoFred. Didn't need the ult, and just those individual little stuns make a massive difference. And for Soccer, he's got level 5 and a return kill onto QvoFred. Nothing has been free yet here in Game 3. It's been eye for an eye every single time.
Sam is on the warpath right now, just making everything costly. First blood in mid, rotates over, first to 5, and makes use of it. The Oni Warriors just not capable of matching DPS this Pele is putting out this early in the game. I wonder, had the kill landed on QvoFred, maybe likely that he takes over the 5 there, could have potentially fought back through. Fortunately for the Oni Warriors, it's not just the ultimate they get off of Sam. Also stripping that beads means that it is unlikely that he can get aggressive for the next couple of moments. The Oni Warriors can take a deep breath, breathe a little bit. Because this is a game, I think, maybe more distinctly than any other in this set, where if the Oni Warriors can take it to late game, if it's going to go 40, as every game so far has, 30, 35, 40-ish minutes, your Chronos is going to start putting in work. The Solar Scarabs likely concerned about that timer.
But what you are happy about is the pace that Sam for Soccer has set. It's been a good early first kill in mid, and then a counter gank in duo. Pele, a storied pick for Sam, one that he has played and hard carried on plenty of times throughout his career. And this has got to be one of the biggest. The Solar Scarabs in desperate need of their jungler here in the early goings of this game to show up. Has done so far. And the 2-0 start definitely looks good. Now the duo for the Oni Warriors, Miff, I think unique, but also high potential in that lane. NeilMah on the Maui, Vote on the Danzaburou, which has been relegated to just a couple of teams here this weekend.
Shot.
Snoopy used the beads. Ultimate was there from QvoFred. Sam for Soccer will dash forward. That is a lot of burst. He one-shot him. Oh my goodness. And the counter gank again pays off for Sam for Soccer. And they need him. 3-0 start for their jungler.
QvoFred just getting accosted by Sam. Just not happy with the pace of this set so far. Sam for Soccer looking to make a statement against his contemporary on the other side. QvoFred 0-3 as a direct parallel to 3-0 of Sam for Soccer. You're still in an okay position. Naja, not necessarily a god that needs to do all the damage himself. It's the setup potential. It's the ability to just take someone up into the air and allow the rest of your team to rotate through. Even from behind, you still have that.
Whoa, Vote came out of stealth because NeilMah has rounded about his way behind Netrioid, who's got to use the beads. Hurriwind over towards left, but it's not going to catch anybody by surprise. So 3 kills for Sam for Soccer, all 3 of them onto QvoFred, and a 2-level lead out of the jungle. A lot of the fighting, to your point, Miff, happening over in mid, where Dardez can't say much about it. Just massive burst from Sam, and a 2-level lead. So where does he go to supply that pressure? You can just keep mirroring QvoFred, maybe send a little over towards Nika. You'd also love to get this Danzaburou behind. Is down 1 level right now, but if Vote and NeilMah can start to find an advantage, it's a very scary thought for the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, Netrioid no beads for 2 minutes. If I'm QvoFred, I know the last couple of times he's made the rotation over towards duo hasn't looked so pretty. Red buff confirmed by Nika there. But still a great target. Netrioid has got CC immunity in the kit, can use that ultimate to get up into the air, but if Sash hits first and he hasn't responded in kind, Windfire Wheel is confirmed immediately afterward. Gotta play safe for the next 100 seconds because the DPS follow-up from Vote, it's already good. Danzaburou has phenomenal burst from kit, so just need to connect that Windfire Wheels. As of now, haven't seen QvoFred show too much presence of mind towards the duo lane.
No.
And with no farm on the left side either, even if he decides to make this gank, if he doesn't hit pay dirt, it would be so costly. But looking at where he's standing, could be on his mind.
is hovering towards the left side of the map. The Windfire wheels there. Later in the game, there should be some more burst, and QvoFred indeed is going to make his way to a left side gank, and Hurriwind actually steps forward because, wouldn't you guess it, Sam for Soccer's here as well. We're battling in the duo lane, and it's Sam again deleting his target and might get a second. It's Hurriwind who's handed it. Qvo goes in, but immediately dashes back out. Everything Sam touches turns to dust. And another 2 for the Solar Scarabs.
Sam for Soccer just outpacing QvoFred everywhere on the map for now. Solar Scarabs take their picks and the gold 3 as well. And the through thread of the entirety of the last 8 minutes is Snoopy's been able to invade red buff. He's been doing whatever he wants. He's been farming neutrals. Sam for Soccer dominating the map. QvoFred outpaced, and Dardez can't do anything about it. He's farming. That's all he's going to do. That's all you picked this for in the early game. This Chronos, he's a ways off from being involved. About one more tier of the second item, a third item afterward, generally Polynomicon. Then the Chronos is essentially a member of the team. Until then, the Oni Warriors have to make do with this 4 versus 5.
Man, Sam has just read so many of these fights so well. Because again, it's been like answers. QvoFred goes in first, but Sam for Soccer has the sense about him where he knows where the fighting's going to be happening. We've seen this plenty of times where ult's traded over in solo. The junglers haven't been there yet, so why not? Vote is now 2 levels down to Netrioid.
Good damage.
Yeah, it does trade out some nice damage, but Netrioid was uninterested in the fight. Right now, it's just the XP differences. Itemization the exact same, minus the Devourer's Gauntlet that's fully stacked up for Netrioid. You know, I imagine as a jungler, Myth, this is a real brain teaser for QvoFred, where it feels like, okay, I have tried to be active, but it's just constantly been answered. Do I just stop and try to maintain farm? But that then opens up Sam to just free ganks. Awkward spot for this Naja. That might get answered with a gank towards right. Scary D, no mana, but has blue buff and enough health to back up.
Yeah, I think QvoFred is not really going to look for proactive plays anymore. It's more so, hey, my game doesn't look so great. I'll play spoiler to yours. Follow Sam for Soccer. Don't give him the 1v1. It's a difficult thing to follow. If you're tailing him in the jungle, he'll take the fight against you, but still have the ability to slow down some of his ganks. Just make sure this Pele is under control. The Oni Warriors realize that their late game is incredibly strong. It's just about getting there. It's about getting that 6-slotted item. What did Adapting say earlier? If the early's going poorly, if you know you scale, all you got to do is fill out those item charts, and then you're in a good position.
Yep.
The Oni Warriors, they got to follow that credo.
Desk was wondering what Dardez would end up building. We'll return to that in a moment. Hurriwind gets pulled back. Dardez does get a stun onto Hurriwind, who's taking a lot of damage. This would be a good opening kill for the Oni Warriors, but Hurriwind lives on. Sam for Soccer has found Dardez, who couldn't rewind in time. Though Nika's traded, Sam's got all the damage in the world and helps out Scary D and adding 1 onto QvoFred. Oni Warriors, they gotta realize anything, anywhere Sam for Soccer happens to be is not going to feel good. 2-for-1 trade for the Scarabs and a Pyromancer unless Neil can make a miracle steal happen, which he won't.
Man, I couldn't even tell you what killed Dardez there. Dies so quickly. Beads and ultimate
Sam.
still available. I mean, yeah, Sam for Soccer is the only one that could do it that quick. Does so once more. 100% kill participation for the Solar Scarabs jungler. And you're right to play through him. Nika's okay. No ultimate for Scary D. Means there's no way he's actually securing that kill. So instead, just returns a bit of damage. Oni Warriors just got to hold on.
No, Netrioid rolls forward, picks up the purple buff. Vote. Is he going to get his rocket red? No, Hurriwind won't be able to get out into the middle of that lane. Some defensive utility, or offensive as you'd prefer on a Danzaburou, now gone. Wouldn't put it past Sam for Soccer to immediately head over. Now there's a bit of downtime, though. And there's no Pyro, there's no Oni Fury left on the map. And it's in this downtime that Sam has created chaos so far, where the Oni Warriors have maybe assumed there'd be farming going on. Instead, there's been a Pele in just about every lane on the map. Nika picks up a couple of kills, though, here, Myth. I don't think enough to fully counter out the massive Pele that's on the flip side.
He hits hard.
But a Bellona with a kin size is starting to swing a bit here in the solo lane.
Yeah, Scary does not want to take this fight anymore. I mean, wasting all your mana on just resustaining, going to be a bit difficult. Has itemized well to deal with some of the strengths of the Oni Warriors. Triple auto attacker composition, Witchblade in second slot, removing a bit of that attack speed. You'd called for it, Dave. Good game sense. Sam for soccer.
I got great game sense.
He's looking for vote.
Let me tell you. It's just about as good as it gets. NeilMah's got to swing away. Let's see just how much damage this Maui takes. Whole lot of it. Knock up. Another one for Sam for soccer.
He's still
Soccer
going.
6-0. And there's snipes from Netrioid as well. Just needs Hurriwind to tank up the tower. Double kill for Sam for soccer 2. 4 + 2 = 6, which you had a second ago. Now we're on 7.
You wanted it so bad.
I wanted it so bad. I thought it was still 6. That's so unlucky. But it's 7 for Sam. And my goodness, the Solar Scarabs jungler chose a dramatic time to have his best game and is surging forward with the rest of his team.
And with the gold for on the mend, could even potentially look here as well. Vote 10 seconds on the respawn. Oni Warriors, it's a slow rotation over towards left. I don't think there's any defense to be had. The Solar Scarabs starting to run away with this one, and fast. This is an insane pace they've established for themselves. If the Oni Warriors are trying to keep their mental in it, they could just sit there and this is their chant right now. It's we're scaling. We're scaling. We're scaling.
We're scaling.
That's all it is.
Scaling.
They don't have anything else going for them
I
for
don't know.
now.
Those mouths aren't moving. There's not much chanting going on in there.
Yeah, that's not great. Gotta keep the communication rolling.
That's right. No, look, the Oni Warriors, they are a team that is also, I've talked about the Scarabs and a lot of what they've dealt with this year. The Oni Warriors, I actually asked Neil about it in the pregame interview. They started their year with an SPL promotional tournament and are now ending their year with a Worlds promotional tournament. I'm sure at some point they'd love to avoid these promotional tournaments. And it's winning games like this that'll get you there. Fire Giant begun by the Solar Scarabs. It is dropped, however. Now, interesting build path here, Myth. I mean, Sam obviously very ahead, 7-0-2. Unfortunately for me, not 6-0-2. It's a Crusher into a Brawler's Beat Stick. And then the Mad Guys gets the bubble. So not going even further into damage, maybe sensing he's already got enough of it. And now, it'll be easier to complete some of those dives.
Yeah, he's letting his levels do the talking. Doesn't need any more damage from the itemization. Fire Giant, it's burning quick. And San Francisco, he's just a steel wall.
A steel wall that punches back. The Fire Giant's low, but it's reset by the Scarabs. This is an envelopment by the Oni Warriors. NeilMah's just gonna get hung out to dry here. Sprint gets used. And the landfall looks good. Doesn't feel good though on the other side of it. That's one for Snoopy. Dardez just gonna split push down the mid lane. Vote's gonna split push down the duo lane. What are the Oni Warrior, or what are the Solar Scarabs doing rather? They're gonna get a tier 2 tower of their own over on the right side of the map. Not immediately to Fire Giant. Oni Warriors stripping away a lot of the map, where the Scarabs are gonna pick up a tier 2.
Yeah, the Warriors have gotten a lot. I mean, map state favoring them technically, considering tier 2 and mid and how valuable it is.
Vote will keep going here.
Solar Scarabs, I don't even think they can do Fire Giant anymore. Vote's got time, farm up in the jungle. Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that call. I would have much preferred to see the Solar Scarabs roll the dice on Fire Giant once more. Just tier 2 in the solo. I mean, it's gold, and you've built yourself a pretty decent buffer, but feels like it could have been a bit better. The Oni Warriors, on the other hand, I mean, that's ideal. The only thing that makes that situation any better for them is if a couple more people survive. Otherwise, that global gold that Dardez establishes for his team is going to go a whole long way. And even clearing out those waves on his own, close up that level lead that Snoopy had established. Just a bit. Still 2 levels up for the Poseidon. But it does not come without risk incurred. Dardez now, really, if he pushes the wave any further than this, he's not going to get any more farm.
No, you're looking for the Oni Warriors ward coverage. Decent over by the Fury Pit. A couple of those wards now actually timed out. And then the one dead center in mid lane. But depending on where the Solar Scarabs are on the right side of the map, you're not going to have a great idea of where they are. Herman's just going to get picked up here. Should be a pretty quiet one for the Solar Scarabs. This feels like vintage Sam, doesn't it? When you think of Sam for soccer and some of the miracle plays that he's had and some of the Worlds runs that Sam has put together. It's games like this that have allowed his team to have opportunities that otherwise might not have been there. A 7-0-3 Pele with 10 of 10 affected kills. We'll now go back down that damage path some, I assume Arendite. Just around the corner.
But with all the kills landing in Sam for Soccer's pocket, he is key to the team fight. If Sam for Soccer goes down, whoever kills him...
It's going to take a lot.
It's going to take a lot to knock him down, but whoever does it, and it will eventually happen just by nature of being an assassin, That's 900 gold in the other person's pocket.
You better hope Sam doesn't
go undying.
Goose egg the death column this game.
That's not Sanford. This is the triple-double guy, all right? He's got to be gassing himself out, not dying.
That's true. Yeah, but that's a Thanatos triple-double guy.
He's doing it on everybody. Fenrir, Osiris, Lancelot.
Not Pele. Not this game.
Clearly not.
Not this
Which
game.
is the one-for-one god, by the way. In the late game, Pele is, I'm going to go in like a scalpel, find the precision target, take me, I've done it.
Well, the precision target now is Dardez, forced into the rewind, but he's going to land right next to Sam, who will dash forward and delete his target. Oh, but Sam is going to get the CC chain and avoids the death. Landfall from NeilMah gives Vote a kill over, but now it's Hurriwind running away. Nika gets the damage for Hurriwind, a killing spree on one side. Nika drops as Netrioid spins up some damage. Snoopy on a double kill. It's a messy fight over in the mid lane, but one the Scarabs happy to take on a 4-for-2.
Man, that was a clutch first ability from the Poseidon. I'm thinking Vote might have had a bit more to say in that team fight if he doesn't get sniped out there. But at least able to take Sanford Soccer off the map.
He did die.
Vote heads back.
Look at that little down tick right when Sam died.
That's just Vote. And he spent it all immediately. I mean, massive power spike with the Odysseus bow picked up. The Oni Warriors, they're still in it. The Solar Scarabs struggling to find that closeout play. Haven't been able to transition towards the Fire Giant. Instead, Gold Fury still feels pretty decent. Tier 1 tower to boot. The Scarabs keep pushing themselves onward. But it feels precarious, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like we're getting very close to some of these major power spikes? Dardez at 17, already starting to get some of that penetration online with a magic focus. We're one level away, unfortunately still one level away, that is, for NeilMah getting that second relic. Vote finds a massive shutdown kill on a Sanford Soccer, pushes himself a little bit further ahead as well. And Nika has quietly lined himself up a phenomenal game.
Myth, this might be your closeout play. Solar Scarabs is 5 on the FG. It goes quickly. Oni Warriors not able to out-confirm the Kraken. I love it. Immediately regroup, go back to the right side. Now give yourself the biggest advantage we've had so far. 2 trebuchets in the base of the Solar Scarabs as well. You can send those whenever you please if you feel like you need some help breaking open this base. This is going to be one of the hardest, you know how junglers usually mirror each other 1v1 in some of these lanes? It's going to be one of the hardest 1v1s I've ever seen mirrored. Sanford Soccer.
Fred don't want that.
Can just about delete anyone.
Yeah, Fred doesn't even have a great matchup into Pele in general. Doubly so with Magi's.
Yeah,
so
there's a bubble, right?
If anybody's going to line up against this Pele, it's probably going to be either Dardez because he wants the solo farm, or it's going to be Nika because he's got the best odds at actually defending. Solar Scarabs, though, realizing that they're so far ahead with Fire Giant on all 5 as well that really there's no need to go for the 4-1 split. Group up as 5 and you love your odds in that team fight. The Oni Warriors likely won't defend this tier 2 on left either. Instead, I mean, the idea is there, and it's clear. It's written on the wall. Farm, 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 everywhere on the map. Dardez is scrounging desperately to tick over to level 20. Everybody on the Oni Warriors fighting tooth and nail to be that one guy who gets to get the wave before the Solar Scarabs show up. Maybe with a significant grouping on left, the Warriors going to reprise a play we had seen a little bit earlier on this game. Split push. Grab some towers. They'll go quick with Chronos on the scene.
Yeah, Dardez effectively 2 shots. The remaining health of the tower over on right. Trebuchets do get sent. Solar Scarabs kind of just now regrouping. So Netrioid and Hurriwind plus Snoopy over on left. And a hovering of Scary D and Sanford Soccer in the jungle while all of the Oni Warriors by this tier 2 tower. Worthwhile if you can get back and defend your base, but looks like Scary D is enough to shove back the Oni Warriors. You're right though, Myth. I mean, it does feel... Oh, back did get stopped. Scary D actually gallops forward. NeilMah back in base. It's a good opening for the Solar Scarabs. You got 4 versus 4, but a handy gold lead here. QvoFred sends out a sash. He didn't want it to be there. How accurate is Netrioid? Can't see Qvo. Instead, we'll just poke some damage down on the Vote! And it's the right target, just needed a little bit more. Big landfall from NeilMah. Big ult in from Nika. The Oni Warriors have combined perfectly, but it's put him out of position, and Netrioid reminds him why.
Solar Scarab still healthy and resustaining with the help of Hurriwind. Can keep up their siege.
Dardez is split pushing? Are they trying to delay?
I think you're willing to let go of the Phoenix, so Dardez wants to get as much gold as possible.
Can they delay?
I mean, they might be able to go into the Titan room if they spot them.
I wonder how far the Oni Warriors are willing to chase here. Can you delay the backs of the Solar Scarabs? There's 5 versus 3, though. If the Oni Warriors get caught out here, the game is just over. Dardez will work down the right side Phoenix. The teleport should be the end of it.
That was close.
And mid lane Phoenix drops. Dardez now actually being chased down by Scary D. You're talking about desperately scrounging for farm myth. Dardez has hit level 20, but Scary D's got the right idea here. Gallops forward, looking for a stun onto Dardez, won't get it. Left side Phoenix down. Dardez might actually get soloed here by Scary D. The Scarabs have played this map wonderfully with their lead. Beads off of Scary, and it feels like a matter of time unless Dardez can make the miracle play. Will not. One last auto. Down goes Dardez. Scarabs, they've got the one-man advantage in 20 seconds on FG.
And with the Phoenixes rather down on mid and left, the Solar Scarabs, it's just about closing it out from here. The Oni Warriors have done a great job just finding that farm on map. The fact that the tower situation is as even as it is right now, considering how poor the game state has been from minute 1, you deserve every bit of credit we can laud upon the Oni Warriors. Solar Scarabs, I think, just run it down. Move to the Fire Giant. Get ready. We're 1 minute out on that respawn. The Oni Warriors likely will not try and put up a defense in neutral territory. But power spikes have been hit. All that time Dardez spends on the right, sure, may have ended in death, but still gains him, I believe, 3 levels throughout that duration. Finish up the Ob Shard as well, so maybe a bit better time returning damage into Scary D if he should find himself in that same situation again. It is narrow, narrow margins that the Solar Scarabs make it out with their lives on the previous Phoenix defense. In a better position for it this time around. And even with enhanced minion waves now in every single lane, this Fire Giant, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion, Dave. The Oni Warriors, it's all about base defense.
Myth, I'm thinking game 3 might just be a foregone conclusion here. The journey of 3 steps that we've talked about appears to have just taken its first.
Not
for the
without
Solar
stumbles.
Scarabs. Yeah, right, a slight trip on the 1 step. 1 foot in front of the other. We're learning how to do it here for the Solar Scarabs in this best of 5. They're simply so strong. Hurriwind, the same net worth as the richest member of the Oni Warriors, and that's Vote. Wonder if the Oni Warriors have something cooking up here, though. I mean, split pushed effectively on the last couple of instances of the Solar Scarabs getting a Fire Giant.
Uh-oh.
You're going to see just how much damage Sam can do here. A couple abilities. Half HP QvoFred.
Catch and release.
That's a calculated play there, though, by Sam. Maybe not knowing exactly where all the Oni Warriors are. I talked about the Oni Warriors having something cooking. They could have been sitting in that jungle waiting for the Pele. Instead, they're on the right side defending their Phoenix. One last big swing here for the Solar Scarabs. There is a life from the team that has faced adversity all year long and now laugh in the face of it here in game 3. A 7-1-6 from Sanford Soccer's gotten us here. Snoopy's looked great on the Poseidon as well. Last bit of damage finds its way. 3 Phoenixes down, Oni Warriors backpedal away, and Titan damage soon to follow.
Solar Scarabs have so much time left on this Fire Giant power play.
Never mind.
If they just get into the Titan room, I mean, the burst is there. A Kraken Whirlpool combo from Snoopy doing upwards of 50% of this Titan's HP bar, I'm thinking. So the Oni Warriors, they can't let the Solar Scarabs into the base. They can't let them into the throne room. Not that the Solar Scarabs are fighting all that hard for it either. They want to deal with these birds on respawn.
But look, we've seen the 3-man pull into the 3-man Eagles rally, and even that wasn't enough. It's got to be onto the right targets now, and the damage has got to follow. Double root from Hurriwind. A pull here makes all the difference as well. Mid lane Phoenix respawns, but it's an afterthought for the Solar Scarabs. Scary D tanks up the damage nicely. Oni Warriors grouping up heavily. All bunched up. It's a good go button press. Nika jumps in, but he's lost all of his health in the meantime. Same with Nika. Where does Vote go, though? The rocket out and away. Half HP on all of the Oni Warriors, but the Titan not yet been touched. There's still a Kraken awaiting. The Kraken hits Solar Scarabs. They'll take game 3. And at least game 4 awaits around the corner.
A bit of life from the Solar Scarab camp as they find one in the win column. A clean win decided by one man. Looks quiet in the booth, but he lets his gameplay do the talking. Sanford Soccer single-handedly decided, we're not getting goose egg here. You're going to have to earn your way to Worlds on the side of the Oni Warriors. I'm excited to see what he could bring in the subsequent games.
And Miff, I think that was one of the more comfortable games I've seen from Snoopy as well. Now, it helps when your jungler is
going crazy.
Playing a menace, right? I mean, if you can just drop a Kraken and lift your hands
You are
up.
just like aggro, man. Just junglers popping off, and you want to talk to me about Snoop?
No, but I mean, Snoopy has a really nice game there.
Of course. No, but yes.
How many times did I say Sam just goes dummy
Not
in
enough.
that game?
Not enough. Do it again.
I said he's had a career game in this one. Sam for soccer.
Keep going.
The one springing his team forward.
Go.
Almost ad nauseum, Miff. I couldn't have said it any more
I
than
want
I
to hear
did.
it ad infinitum. All right, keep going.
Ad infinitum. Sam for soccer. Sam for soccer. Sam for soccer. That's 3. Maybe more of Sam for soccer in game 4. Coming up next.
exactly what I need. I'm not ashamed what I feel. Oh, what you looking at? What you looking at? Why keep we standing over here? I'm purring like a cat. Oh, what you looking at? What you looking at? I'm irresistible. I'm deadly like that. 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 Would you come and get me, boy? I'm deadly like that.
Welcome back to the final set of the SWC group stages, but not the final game, at least as of yet. A win from the Solar Scarabs in Game 3 has now extended us to a game number 4 in this best of 5. And for my money's worth on this one, Charlie, I've got to give a ton of credit over to Sam for Soccer, at least to start this game out. This man went on an absolute tear at the beginning of the game, started off with an easy kill over in the mid lane in the 2v2 very early on. And from that point on, we really elevated his team to success.
Yeah, I said early on in Picks and Bans that Sam for Soccer was going to have to drag his team in this game, and it turns out that was very literal. I mean, he absolutely popped up, but it wasn't just being in the right place at the right time. If you noticed, he was targeting QvoFred. He's saying, wherever this Naja goes, I'm going to wait till Sash is down, and then I'm just going to go bully him, because guess what? Naja never wins that 1v1, especially early on at level 2. Pele, the movement speed, the double pyrolast, even a tower shot is not going to stop Sam for Soccer in this game. I don't think the Pele's coming back anytime soon, and if it does, I don't imagine Qvo's looking towards that Naja anymore, because Sam was able to just bully in the early, dealt with a lot of what this Naja wanted to accomplish.
Gotta also give some credit over to Hurriwind on this Sylvanus. Not the easiest god to execute on with a composition that you're going up against. I mean, Bellona, Danzaburou, Maui, even throw the Naja on there. The whole composition from the Oni Warriors screams ability to kill the tree time and time again, but Hurriwind really set up for his team, especially Sam for Soccer during these early engagements. Really bought a lot of time for players like Netrioid and Snoopy to be able to make some escapes should they have gotten low. Sustained good from them as well, and the Solar Scarabs able to bring themselves back to game number 4 now. But again, this is the journey of 1,000 steps. Got to make your first one somewhere, and Solar Scarabs do it in this one.
And because Mifflin's not here to make fun of us, we can talk about how well Snoopy played. You know, I think the Poseidon, I gave enough credit to Sam, right? He absolutely popped up, but I do think that this Poseidon was on point. The one time that Sam for Soccer died, Snoopy was there to clean up. You know, he had the Krakens on point. He was doing tons of damage as well. Netrioid, as you would expect, he's been getting this Rama time and time again because he knows how to handle it. He knows how to hit those snipes when he's got vision. You know, it was just a good, well-executed draft, and I think a bit of a counter draft to what the Oni Warriors had. We have seen a lot of Chronos mid. Haven't seen that much success with it, and still not going to see too much. I think Dardez did a good job of dragging, you know, some members of the Scarabs, in this case Scary D, over to right lane for a bit. But when your team can win that 4v4, it doesn't matter if the Guan Yu's gone.
Broke 10,000 player damage, though. That's something. Remember something that was constantly talked about whenever Zeros was playing, but also put up nearly 10,000 structure damage at the same time. So kind of doing a half and half job of doing some damage to the enemy and also dealing with some of these towers out there. Yep. But Oni Warriors maybe looking for a switch up now in game number 4. Solar Scarabs have now reset the momentum of this game and kind of put themselves in a much better position to move forward in this. Remember, it's a best of 5 for these two teams to figure out which of those one is going to be the team that qualifies to the SMITE World Championship and join the other teams that have qualified through here. The 2 SCCs from EU, Hex Mambo, Highland Ravens, Tartarus Titans, who qualified earlier on in this week. Now only one more spot left between these 2 SPL teams to see. And then a whole draft show that's going to happen immediately after with the captains of the 4 teams that did qualify to see where things are going to pick out. Now, I'm actually really interested and really curious to see maybe what some of the drafting mentality from those teams are to kind of start to define the bracket of the SMITE World Championship quarterfinals. But before either of these teams can get to that point, they They got to make it through game 4.
All we know for sure is that Deathwalker wants the Kings.
We do know
That's
that.
the only thing that we have been told so far, because he said it in his interview. Whether it was just that manly gusto, or maybe he was just trying to set up the Kings for failure, I don't know. But besides that, gonna be interesting for sure. But to do that, we got to figure out what happens between this matchup. You were thinking the momentum of the Oni Warriors would kind of just ride them into a 3-0. Winning the first 2 is not easy to come back from, but off some great confidence and great play from Sanford, the Scarabs, now they've got the momentum in their favor.
And maybe now in game 4, as we jump into the picks and bans, maybe Sam doesn't have to drag the team nearly as much with him. Now maybe he's kind of got their attention to say, guys, we've got this. We can do this. We've got that momentum shift in our favor now. So we'll see how the Solar Scarabs adapt in game number 4. Oni Warriors, seeing that they're going to keep up a very similar drafting style up against the Solar Scarabs. There's the first adjustment that I was wondering if was going to be made. The Vulcan has constantly been banned away from Snoopy. It's one of his premier picks in the mid lane. But I was wondering, after a performance like Sam had, we'd seen Pele get banned in the bottom 2 bans for games 1 and 2. Game 3, it finally makes it through. Probably not going to make it through anytime soon again.
Yeah, I don't think so. Something that is that good in the early and also has that late game carry potential needs to be removed. And Snoopy's Poseidon getting a little bit of respect there from the Oni Warriors. I think both good looks, and it shows that the Oni Warriors not only took into account what happened last game and realized what kind of stopped them, they're actively trying to counter those things. So the Oni Warriors have their pick of the Ishtar or the Chronos. Usually it's the Ishtar. And I would imagine that's where they go here, unless they want to give that up and they find the Chronos just as valuable. They don't. They're going to grab the Ishtar. First pick. It's been played in mid. It's been played in duo, but I think Vote probably going to take this one over that long lane.
Yeah, so the Morgan, Dodgy, Fafnir by the Scarabs, Poseidon, Pele, Vulcan banned away by the Warriors. Ishtar first pick from the Warriors, no surprise, seeing that this Hunter's made it through, but it does leave Cernunnos open now, which has been consistently banned away throughout this set. Alongside of Sylvanus, could make for a pretty potent duo lane, and one that might actually be able to stand up to the pressure that Ishtar outputs. Remember, we always talk about how Ishtar plus insert carry here can really just kind of control, or insert support here can kind of just control a lane no matter what. But it won't even be the Cernunnos. Might even go ignored this game. It's Sylvanus and Ram for the Solar Scarabs.
I'm baffled. I think that you could honestly, if you're the Oni Warriors, you could take Ishtar, Nemesis, and Cern, and you could have a crazy composition. But I like this a little bit better. Not because it's good. I just love watching Dardez on Hera. It always works out for him. It's a pick that he's very confident on. No one else is playing Hera, but it's a great follow-up to the Naja ult. It's got some decent self-peel, and it's just a very iconic god character matchup here for the Oni Warriors.
Well, now how will the Solar Scarabs respond? Could maybe see Double Hunter as an option if they do want to grab the Cernunnos for the side of the Solar Scarabs. Maybe to throw that one over into mid lane for Snoopy. Snoopy, no stranger, at least to being able to pick up some of those gods, some of those hunters in the mid lane role. We'll have to see if he elects to go that way or the Solar Scarabs hold off. No jungler picked up for the Scarabs either. Could be a good idea to maybe grab something now for Sam before too many essential picks get taken away. Remember, he defaulted to the Hun Bats in game number 1. Worked out pretty well from there. Just fell a little bit behind at that point. So I wonder what the Solar Scarabs do before this final ban wave comes through.
I mean, I'm thinking you don't have to focus Sam for Soccer's pick here, but he should be going something that can bully this Naja. It worked so fantastic in game number 3 there. If anything that can go for the kill on a Naja after the sash, it does not really care about Windfire Wheels. Pele did very well. That's banned away. You got a few different options. Sam for Soccer style picks. I think the Hebo still could be something that he wants to go to. Not the greatest matchup into the Naja, but once he goes back up in the air and he's not taking up the Hebo, you're usually landing into a crushing wave. And I also think that Hera doesn't love that pick either. They're going to focus out Snoopy's pick first, and it's going to be the Scylla. Not too much setup for it just yet. I mean, you've got the Wrath of Terra, but that's not always going to be a great initiation. You got to hope that more CC is coming in these last 2.
So now we go into the second wave of bans for the Scarabs and the Warriors. Bellona taken away, and something that worked out pretty well for Nika in that last game. A couple of moments where Nika and NeilMah were able to really make some nice combos and kind of delay the game out. I'm thinking all the way back to the mid-Phoenix defense the two of them had to only drop one player. Still end up losing the Phoenix at the very end just because they were a little too low to continue defending, but some great combo potential there. Bellona tier, the bans by the Solar Scarabs, Guan Yu from the Oni Warriors. So a lot of focus in the solo lane.
Yep.
With no solo laner picked up just yet. I mean, Amaterasu's still available. That one will be left open if the Scarabs want to go to it. Kakulin is something that Scary D has gone to a few times, but Fenrir going to be the answer after the Mercury ban.
Definitely can be something that bullies the Hera. You just have to watch out for the polymorph. After that, you're taking the full brunt of a brutalize. Also can bully out Najah when the sash is down, but you're not loving that 1v1. A counter gank for sure. If you're following around the Najah, you can make that work. It's good beats burn as well. We were talking about setup for Scylla, and holding someone still in a Fenrir's mouth is about as free of a kill as you can get for that I'm a Monster once you get some damage online. I'm curious what you see Scary D go to. I mean, you have to imagine the Oni Warriors have the Amaterasu pick in the back of their pocket. Will they go it, though, is the question. I really do think this team looks the best when Nika's on a hard carry. He was able to make the Bellona a hard carry in game number 1, and with the Khepri, you'd think even more damage in the backline would not hurt here. But they're thinking long and hard about this one.
Gaze into the mirror.
Well, Ama will not be able to go to Scary D this time as that gets locked in alongside Khepri for the Oni Warriors. We haven't seen very much Khepri this event so far. I believe only the Tartarus Titans have picked that one up so far this entire event. There's going to be something completely different for the Scarabs. Once again, the Sylvanus was something new in game number 3 to kind of bump up here and help out the Scarabs. And now in game 4, Camazotz for what I imagine will be Scary in the solo lane. How do you feel about the Kama-Ama matchup and kind of how that one will maybe shake up the early game for these teams?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're not really looking for that solo kill as the Kama. You can. You have plenty of damage, but you're picking that Kama for the dive onto Hera, right? You want to get into the back line, blink in, hit Vampiric Bats, focus out some sort of relic, and then go into Bat Out of Hell to juke out Argus. And that's something that can definitely happen. The one thing about Kama is you have to be landing that second ability. If you're not landing Vampiric Bats, you're missing out on a lot of extra damage. You're missing out on a lot of extra utility then, and it can be difficult. It's a hard ability to land consistently. They've got good CC though. I think that just because the Khepri's here to counter out Ragnarok, you always have the option to simply pick Neil instead, right? Pick up that Khepri, kill him first before the ult goes off, and you should be able to start off the team fight right. No way that Neil doesn't start beads, and if he doesn't, I know exactly where San Francisco is going to be at level 5.
So we can see for at least the Oni Warriors, the Ishtar Khepri lane, that should be able to get a decent bit of pressure, maybe over the Sylvanus and the Rama over there. Scylla, with some of her recent buffs, has actually made it to where she can probably even go toe-to-toe, if not maybe even out-pressure the Hera in that regard. So for the Solar Scarabs to maybe try and find this lead, to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit earlier for them, where do you send Sam to try and get things started up for the Solar Scarabs?
At this point, it's just whoever's beads are down, right? He has plenty of opportunity to find ganks on just about anyone when the follow-up is there. I still think NeilMah is going to take a lot of pressure this game as the Khepri, but that's pretty much anyone who's playing Khepri. They know you're probably going to be the first target with some CC. Maybe a Sunder pickup could be valuable here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just focus out Neil and then worry about the rest of the team fight once you're up 5-4.
Well, we've been seeing a lot of purification beats picked up by Neil and by some of the other supports through this weekend, maybe recognizing that they have kind of been the target of a lot of this aggression through. Would not be surprised, as you highlight, that Fenrir could maybe look to try and focus up on NeilMah just a little bit, try and keep this support down, and maybe try and prevent some of these Scarabs blessings from saving their teammates, maybe trying to use it to save his own skin in that regard. The Solar Scarabs, though, they got game number 3, but now they got to take game 4, and they've got to take game 5 before we can even have a chance to see a game 5. The Scarabs have got to get it done here. Will we see the coded 5th game? Let's find out in game number 4.
We haven't had a game 5 all weekend long. It would be a heck of a time for one with Worlds on the line. But the Oni Warriors now need to restabilize after what happened there in game 3, where San Francisco really takes things over and does not give the Oni Warriors a chance. Simply steamrolls the Oni Warriors in game number 3. And if Sam's got a pick that can get the ball rolling here, bit of a different look. Fenrir supplying targets to your team. But it's a run back for QvoFred on this Najah. Got run off the map by San Francisco in game 3. A bit more momentum would feel good for QvoFred in game 4.
And this time around, you've got an okay counter matchup in that Brutalize essentially just like doesn't work against Naja. Hold on to Sash, and you'll always have an answer for it. So I don't hate him going back to Naja. It's not standard follow-up, though, from Dardez. Generally, you want a Searing Pain, a Kraken, a Sweep of 9 Winds, like that style of burst ability. Well, I mean, you could polymorph on landing. You can...
Yeah.
Oh, man. The ability name is eluding me. Where she, yeah, the Argus Hammer, though, like where both the hands come out and it, like, smashes them.
Couldn't tell you.
The Hulk Smash. That's the one.
All right, place your Royal Assault. That's what I was gonna say, and then
Of
Doug,
course. Of course.
Doug brought it up right as I was saying it.
Like it's decent damage follow-up. It's a bit desynced, and if there is beads available to whoever's landed from QvoFred's ultimate, one probably should have had beads on landing.
Yeah.
That means you could have beads the actual ultimate itself. But if it is there, the damage follow-up will take a pretty significant hit as well, as you're allowed to move immediately afterward. Otherwise, I'm keeping my eyes on Sanford Soccer. He was integral to the win for the Solar Scarabs. This time around, Charlie does a great job highlighting this. Not exactly the individual playmaker that Pele is.
Yep.
A little bit more so for facilitation. Need some help here.
Good damage onto Snoopy. Last couple of autos would have gotten it done, but Sanford Soccer supplies the body blocks. It'll end up being the Scylla for Snoopy here this game. If we have seen plenty of Scylla games in the past that have made
So many.
crazy differences during World Championship events. Pretty decent follow-up on an ult from Sanford Soccer, maybe pull in a root from Hurriwind. We have also seen plenty of Scylla games where nothing seems to connect. It's a risk-reward type of god for the Solar Scarabs here in Game 4. You almost got to use the beats very early on in the laning phase.
That's tough. So now rotations from Sanford Soccer will have value. Fortunately, this early in the game, you're not super worried about Ragnarok coming through. It's generally on
Why is
that
that, man?
4.5 minute mark that you start to tick over to level 5. So by the time that happens, beat should be back up.
You're worried about the Sash, though, that's for sure. Scary D silenced, and QvoFred and Nika won't have enough damage. One tower shot would have killed off the Amaterasu. But you know what? It's a different look from QvoFred than what, actually not even. It's the same look for QvoFred from what we saw in Game 3, where he was the one who was starting off a lot of the pressure. Sanford Soccer was answering it quite effectively. And so picking up with some of the early ganks for QvoFred. Not a bad look, especially when you know there's not a Pele awaiting on the other side.
And that would have been one of the few opportunities you have to actually shut down a Camazotz. Bat Out of Hell is just one of the best escape tools in the game. Removes you from the playfield for so long. You can essentially cover half a lane's worth of distance with that ability too. So trying to catch him pre-5, an admirable effort from QvoFred. And even in just burning the beads away, should make it a bit easier for Nika to reestablish equilibrium in that lane. For the most part, Scary D was winning out on the poke battle up until then. Now, maybe without beads, take over to Dazzling Offensive, level 5 first. Could keep it interesting.
Could keep it interesting, but
Doesn't even hit 5 first. Unlucky.
yeah, unbelievable. We have not seen a Camazotz in a laning phase in a little while. It's fallen out of meta contention just a little bit. Good at dive, good at supplying some damage, Myth. Can stay in the engagement, and actually looks like might end up being a Transcendence early on. I was wondering what direction of build this Camazotz would go. Scary D has liked the sort of hybrid build. We saw Soul Eater first on Cucullin a few games ago. Now it looks like an early Transcendence. Anything that can supply a little extra damage on these sort of hybrid warrior assassin style of builds. Something Scary D likes to go.
Yeah, just the ability to deal damage, I think, is the main thing on Scary D's mind. Loves to get into that back line, wants to be a threat on his own. Very capable of being a facilitator, but Camazotz not exactly that style of
Right,
god.
I guess you have to deal damage. You're not doing,
That's
you're not
all
doing
he
much
does.
else, right?
Camazotz is the god of damage. He's got a slow. That's it. That's the amount of CC that he brings to the team fight. Otherwise, every single one of your abilities, just about dealing with some of these squishier targets. Has great dive potential, especially against Hera, who is lacking mobility. But as the game starts to tick onward, Hera's HP shield that she gets just gets massive, very easy to avoid at least one ability from this Camazotz. That's when you start to look elsewhere. That facilitation of Sanford Soccer setting up for the I'm a monster from Snoopy, or even Hurriwind finding those pools. That's how you burn through that shield, find the bigger damage. So then what is Scary D's job? If it's not just to deal with Dardez on your own, it's to create that space.
Yep.
Has a decent matchup into Vote. Can answer ultimate with ultimate every single time, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're in the laning phase. We're a ways off.
Depending on the pace of this game, though, we might be hanging out in this laning phase for 10, 15 minutes or so. I do wonder how the Scarabs Blessing will impact this game. I mean, you could drop it on a target that's about to get I'm a Monstered. Drop it on a target who gets Ragnaroked. Could be very important.
I'll bet you this. First one's going to him. Like, he's ulting himself for sure.
He's going to have to at some point throughout this game. Almost guarantee it. Sash in. That's onto Hurriwind. Polymorph, Argus, all of it drops. But for now, Hurriwind's able to get out there.
Good body
fire
blocks.
wheels rolling through on a dazzling offensive from Nika. Still in the back line, but Scary D has eyes for QvoFred, whose last bit of mana is used towards a heal. Argus chasing down targets, none of them low enough. And a little scrap on the right side jungle keeps everyone on the map.
Man, Neil is absolutely insane for that one. Body blocks out the Ragnarok from Sanford Soccer, who had eyes for Dardez the entire time, and just times it out completely. Ragnarok wasn't allowed to be used there. Doesn't even burn the beads away from NeilMah. Decides not to pick up anybody. Great play from the Oni Warriors support. Just goes to show sometimes having a warm body there, all you need.
Somehow the Solar Scarabs myth have built up 1,000 gold lead here. Seemingly out of nowhere. Experience.
Yeah, where is that?
Experience dead even. Scary D has been farming up quite effectively there. Net worth 4.3K for him, 3.8K for Nika. So 500 of it for Scary D, and then maybe another 100, 150 or so spread out across the rest of the Solar Scarab. So just a good bit of farming here from Scary, who hasn't been able to go back and finish the Transcendence just yet. That'll be a nice power spike. Whenever you can go ahead and get that one stacking, makes you more impactful in the team fights. Over on right, Vote avoids the pull back, and he'll do you one better. He's fighting out with Netrioid here. Gotta flip away though, because there's too much to fight in with. Oh no, NeilMah, he's here as the snipes. Headed towards Vote, would have been a Scarab's Blessing if all of the snipes were connecting. But more just a tense moment for Vote than anything else.
Loses out on the beads though, which could be dangerous. Sanford Soccer without Ragnarok. Very good at chasing down gods like Ishtar. Just brutalized, sticks to her. The only way you can stop it's by dashing at him or using your ultimate. Neither exactly a great option. Just puts him exactly where he wants to be, which is right next to you. So, gonna have to play cautiously in that lane for a good while. Fortunately for Vote, it's not the only safety net he's still holding on to. He has Scarab's Blessing. NeilMah can hover nearby. Make sure that it's a little bit more difficult to shut down the ADC of the Oni Warriors. Solar Scarabs, I'm curious to see where they put this pressure, considering so much that gold lead is sitting on Scary D and Experience hasn't exactly separated just yet either. Could be that he just relegates himself to sitting in this lane, especially with what could be one of the most aggressive, greedy builds you'll ever see out of the solo.
Oh, wow, is he on Soul Eater after?
I think he might be. It's the only one that makes sense to me. It's a lot of lifesteal, it's a lot of power, it gets some penetration. I mean, it's a great stat stick, but double stacking, it's going to take a while.
My man is tired of initiating and wants to just scrap. Think back to...
I'm sick of chewing. I want to eat.
Oh my God, I did not
You don't get that
know.
bit? Oh, man.
I did not know where you were going with that. I was super nervous for a moment. Was it, I guess it was what, early Season 9 this year when solo laners were building... What, was Bastet solo the beginning of Season 9 where they're just going full assassin?
I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, man. That had to have been...
I think it was
That's mid-Season 8, I'm pretty sure.
No, because remember, Nika got a pentakill
Was that this
during
year?
the SPL promotional tournament on Bastet solo.
Oh, man.
Building, I mean, it was...
That was the build. That was
was a-
pre-nerf Soul Eater.
Right, pre-nerf Soul Eater. But it worked out pretty handedly then. That's back when we were getting a lot of Kleena solo as well. I guess Scary D rewinding the clock a bit. We'll see what the rest of those 3 items in the initial build look like, but for now, looks like damage. But in your mind, Miff, that means he wants to slow down the game a bit and farm up.
Yeah, it's just going to take a little while. I mean, Soul Laners, for the most part, don't really want to rotate out a lane before level 15 or so anyway, so should be able to get to that point.
So greedy.
It's just the nature of the beast, man. I mean, that's just how it is. I think once he does rotate, though, it speaks to that level of, hey, you need damage. If with Camazotz, that's all you're providing to your team. You got to do it well. Now he's going to have some more survivability.
My goodness. Well, he's got good damage already for QvoFred. He's got the Windfire wheels onto the Camazotz. Still a bat out of hell awaiting. Qvo, oh, he's in the Scarabs blessing. This is timed wonderfully by the Solar Scarabs. I'm a monster, up and over. Oh no, but Nika, he'll get first blood onto Snoopy, who waited too long, was searching for the ultimate onto QvoFred, and that chance never arrived. Instead, Nika has, as Scary D might be the next to get chased down, but happy with a 1-for-1 of the rest of the Onis.
Nika still hovering nearby, wants a bit more. Greater Scorpion pulled out. Not a massive objective here. Would be risky for the Solar Scarabs to look for the defense, so they will not. Great play once more. I thought QvoFred, with the Scarab's blessing, would have just sat and crushed and hoped that it timed out in time. Instead, takes the opportunity to do the absolute most. Does upwards of 60 to 70% of Snoopy's HP bar, creating the opportunity to turn around that first blood.
Nika's in trouble now, no dazzling offensive, but a dash away, Brutalized chases it. And a second for the Solar Scarabs, right on time. Teleport's gonna be there, but it's 30 seconds away for Nika. Get some stacks. Look, anytime you can put some pressure over where Scary D is, get the stacks building, get some of those extra items online. Jump start what is a bit of a slower build. Scarabs are placing their pressure in a decent spot. Now a Pyromancer pulled out by the Solar Scarabs, scanning the map. No one from the Oni Warriors close by, and another proactive play pays off, and early in game 4, a 2,000 gold lead for the Scarabs.
Man, experience as well, starting to balloon out of control at that. The Oni Warriors, still potential to fight back in. Experience landing 1 level in mid, 1 in support for the most part. Not exactly the biggest deal, and even 1 out of the solo lane. I think for now, the Oni Warriors likely just want to spool up Dardez. That's really where you're trying to find all your damage. That's your follow-up on the Windfire Wheels. Allow him the opportunity to farm out.
My goodness, this is a fight over in solo. Dazzling offensive. He
just got him.
Oh my God, Scary D, the silence. Could not get into the bat out of hell, and it's light work for Nika. Takes a deep breath, comes back to lane.
What?
And solo Scary D, and we're fighting in duo as well. QvoFred is on his way in. QvoFred needed, but Dardez around the backside will take it away. And across the map, it's all coming up Onis.
I mean, it was essentially a 1v1 on both sides. Vote had him solo, dead to rights, just needed a little bit of help to secure the kill. That is wild. Scary D had ult, could have just got out.
Now a fight continues in mid. Sanford Soccer leaps away as Argus drops from the heavens. Snoopy will be silenced. Be able to dash away. I'm a monster for the CC immunity just in case, though any amount of damage likely takes that Scylla down. And without Wrath of Terra, without I'm a monster, the Oni Warriors sensing the Scarabs a bit weaker, and a Gold Fury pull goes the way of the Oni Warriors. They have answered back early pressure from the Scarabs.
What a crazy turnaround. Things were starting to get real dire for the Oni Warriors, but Nika comes up massive for the team. Slight misplay there from Scary D. Netrioid gets over aggressive, takes the 1v1. When you look at the itemization between these two hunters, 1v1s favor Vote. It only takes 1 or 2 crits to make up for the difference of that execution or DPS. Clearly, Vote had it there. Was able to turn that one around completely, and now the Warriors, having stripped the Gold Fury from the map, don't need to worry about the Solar Scarabs looking towards it. The concern being that the Solar Scarabs just have better confirmed.
Scary D makes his presence known. Will have Bat out of hell this time, but if Nika can chase this down, or maybe silence him out again, might be another one on the Scary D. How far is Bat out of hell really gonna get him? Nika and QvoFred can chase this down if they want Blink needed. Almost the sash, but the Blink not red. But Scary D has got to use it all but beads. That was an aggressive play. Scary knew that Qvo and Nika were there. Chose to step up anyway.
Scary's got big man syndrome right now. He's thinking to myself, look, Transcendent's almost stacked up. Soul Eater there too. NeilMah in no man's land, but so tanky.
Tanky has beads and Scarab's blessing. And look at the damage. Vote is able to return. Snoopy was hovering in the background if the fight made its way further into the jungle. Neil will take that every day. I mean, doesn't want to have to use the beads, but we'll use them to waste the time of a few of the Solar Scarabs.
Now, once more, we get to get a little bit of a breather here. Not much to fight over on the map. Hasn't stopped the fight from happening in the soul lane.
Oh, he might be in
Dardez
trouble.
and Qvo.
Yeah.
This could be a dive.
Scary's in trouble. Does not have Bat out of hell. Won't have it for a little while. Dazzling offensive.
Counter
Might
rotation.
force out the beads. Polymorph. None of the damage connecting Argus needed at the end.
They're here.
Oni Warriors do get the kill onto Scary D, but had to use a lot to get there. But Sanford Soccer, he's in late. He'll go up into the Windfire Wheels. Is there damage on the backside? Yes, there is. And it's Dardez' second of the game, and now Snoopy is alone in the blue buff. Individual picks, one by one, but Netrioid on a rotation out of duo might flip this fight. The Aegis, it's perfect as QvoFred is trapped. NeilMah on the fadeaway, but it's a double kill over to Net. Far from a clean fight and call it a 3 for 3.
But what does Netrioid get now? Has spent so much time at the opposite side of the map that Vote gets a couple of solo waves, takes down the tower too. I like this call from Netrioid. Can't get back in time to defend. Not his tower, not his buff, so instead must only move forward. A tier 1 tower in solo, a decent answer. That is a massive rotation from the Solar Scarabs off the back of a huge aggression from the Oni Warriors. Scary D survives much longer than I think anybody would have expected in a situation like that. The value of Soul Eater is that it keeps you alive. They can't do this.
They are. They're doing it.
They can't.
Oni Warriors, they are going to start hovering towards right. No way they have
It's a reset. Neil? Okay.
Right, gets reset. NeilMah would have poked his head around the corner anyway. I'm not sure NeilMah saw the health bar low at all. I think it had reset. Completely unaware as to what nearly just transpired. Was going to check it anyway, just in case. So the likelihood of that working out, miraculously slim. But that's something to look for as well later in this game, especially when we're as even as we are here in Game 4. Snoopy with I'm a Monster and Crush should have the best secure on the map. You're going to get a little bit of burst from Dardez.
It's either, really. Crush or I'm a Monster.
Right,
I think
or
beats
I'm a
out
Monster.
anything Dardez can do.
But when you got both, you're even more heavily favoring your mid laner. That's something the Solar Scarabs will have in their back pocket. You love to use the burst damage for kills and fights, but when it comes to being a bit more aggressive around objectives, you have the opportunity. Pyromancer picked up by the Oni Warriors, and that does effectively equalize us. Myth? I'm scared. Again. I'm terrified.
Dave's the best of 5 set. We have so many more games left.
Or do we?
Or do we? Netrioid.
Time is so short.
It is. I'm worried about this. Could this be a dive onto Vote?
Vote's
There's
got
a lot
beads,
here.
Got beads, got Aegis, got ultimate, uses the ladder, uses the former, backflips off Netrioid. Vote somehow trades. Oh, and Netrioid avoids the tower shot. He'll go up into the sky. I'm a Monster from Snoopy as both carries. Brawl with Nika, dodges the damage. NeilMah's in behind as well, so a Scarab's Blessing allows for some aggression, but Nika on the poly proc loses most of his health. This is awkward for the Solar Scarabs, and it's a Windfire Wheels up from QvoFred. Where's the burst on the other side? Here it is! But Scary D gets his bat out of hell off, and it ends up being 1-for-1. Vote down, Sanford Soccer gone.
Either Scary D had a Vampire Bat set up for him before landing, or that was just too soon from Dardez on the ultimate. That damage output just not quite there.
Oni Fury.
TK on a couple. Oni Warriors on the scene. Solar Scarabs nearby. Snoopy and Netrioid, no ultimates for either. Means they just got to get in there and do it the old-fashioned way.
But can Netrioid make the play? No, because there's a sash from QvoFred who might have actually
You good?
been able to keep going.
I've never seen that interaction before. Because QvoFred wasn't in range of that little Orby, it just bounced continuously. No way for Netrioid to stop it. That's crazy.
Yeah, right, because if you were in it, you would have popped it.
It would have popped it.
But because you couldn't deal damage to it, it just kept going.
Imagine that killed him. Imagine.
That would have been nuts. Admittedly, it would have, this is me showing my own weakness. It would have been totally lost on me. I would have just assumed it was bouncing forever for some reason, which is why you're here to fully shine that light. It makes sense to me now, but in the moment, I would have just been like, oh, ring toss bounced a whole bunch. That sucks.
Yeah, unlucky for the old Roid.
That's right. The Fire Giant looked at now, though. That's the next big objective here, Miff. You were talking about 5-10 minutes down the road at the 5 or so minute mark. We fully have arrived here. Dardez well underway in his build. Snoopy is as well. We've seen how the poly is able to get a little extra burst damage on a few of those targets. Not fully stacked is that Soul Eater just yet. We're real close to it. So some healing starting to bake in. Just the double stacking for Scary D. Needs all of that healing right now because there's a rotation from the Scarabs. He has bat out of hell but no beads. Maybe a worthwhile trade for the Oni Warriors who have now softened up and deleted the tier 1 tower.
And they're keeping up this offense at that. They know Snoopy's in mid.
Yep.
So best case, only 4 here from the Solar Scarabs to defend. Small skirmish in the jungle.
Whoa.
QvoFred in trouble.
Qvo's low, has to use the Aegis, and nearly ends up dying anyway. Oh, Nika's gone big.
The turn.
And so has Dardez. The AoE running wild on right, but Qvo beneath the tier 2 tower traded out by Sanford Soccer, and Snoopy is way behind the Oni Warriors here. But they pinged him out. The Oni Warriors know exactly where Snoopy is.
And they don't care?
And they don't care at all. They're going to pull the Fire Giant in the face, but they have got a 2-for-1 trade, and they've got Nika, who's feeling himself a bit, and Dardez, who's bolstering their offense, and it's another for the Oni Warriors.
A reset now for the Warriors would look good. 20 seconds left on respawn from their jungler. Netrioid on 40 means you can regroup and move towards the Fire Giant immediately. That is ridiculous aggression from the Oni Warriors. The second Snoopy showed himself on the map, they say it's a 5 versus 4.
Yep.
I love those odds. We're jumping here. Stepped themselves up and knocked down a couple of Scarabs. The gold lead, not massive, but certainly map state, game state, favoring the Warriors enough that I think they
Mental
can generate
state.
some pressure. I mean, they've even got the whole game buffer.
Right.
Maybe make a risky play here.
Right. Trying to think if that's on brand for the Warriors.
It is not.
I was going to say to take a roll of the dice. It feels like a team that plays very cautiously. If they win this game, again, it'll be the second big major qualifier tournament that they've had to qualify through. Snoopy's used a lot here over in mid. I'm a Monster backpedals him away from the tier 1 tower, and QvoFred takes the I'm a Monster
This
on
guy's
the
a
jaw.
psycho.
Hurriwind with the root, and Snoopy with the poly proc, and now Nika's caught out. What is happening here in game number 4? The Oni Warriors they've done too much. Nika avoids the crush, but not the slow. Scarab's blessing won't get procced by Scary
he's
D.
done.
1 snipe from Netrioid, and it's actually 2 that's needed. But Scary D's got the rest, and no
Turn.
way! The Oni Warriors, Miff, they're walking back forward.
Argus has the damage.
Argus!
Netrioid has to peel it out. Does finally reset. Hurriwind and Snoopy on the chase.
Oh my god, Sanford Soccer has jumped back in! And Dardez has been rooted again. Hurriwind, a madman with the roots on the front of these fights. Take a deep breath. QvoFred walks into the I'm a Monster and then sashes in anyway. And suddenly it's the Solar Scarabs with the map state advantage.
QvoFred had to have been assuming that Snoopy's beads were down.
Snoopy?
That's the only way it works.
How much damage is Snoopy going to be able to
Did
do
Neil see
here
him?
if both of the carries walk over? I don't think he did. NeilMah dashes away. Fire Giant
It's just Pyro.
slowly looked at, but instead Pyromancer taken. Nika still dead for 5, does not have teleport. And a 4v5 on right, that is not to be. Wouldn't you guess it, Miff? We've teeter-tottered back the other way. We were teetering before, now we've tottered back to the Solar Scarabs.
I'm getting motion sick.
I know. What is it? Is it Dramamine that's motion sickness?
I need it.
Did you pop some before this set, before this game? It's where the Oni Warriors have roared out to a 2-0 lead. And a lead here in game 4. Have not made things easy on themselves or us. I'm thinking back, I can't get QvoFred taking the I'm a Monster and going in anyway.
Well, he takes the I'm a Monster because Sash was late. He's trying to sash the I'm a Monster
right, okay,
damage.
Okay.
And then I think the only reason you sash in there is because you assume Snoopy's beads are down.
Right.
If that's the case, Windfire Wheels, easy
right,
pick.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't the case, and instead what we got was what appears to be one of the most baffling, goofy plays we've had all week. But read between the lines a little bit. You know, there's a method to the madness.
Sure. Yeah, this is just the chalice thing all over again.
Yep.
You've got a glimpse into the inner eye of the players, and I'm just seeing it for what it is. A man who's taking an I'm a Monster on the chin and going in anyway. But the emotional player in QvoFred ebbs and flows with the game state. And for a moment there, the Oni Warriors were raging forward in this game. Now, you got to look across the map in moments like this because it does seem like we're starting to stumble into Fire Giant dance territory. Waves pushing in on the left side of the map for the Oni Warriors could concern a tier 2 tower for the Scarabs. Nothing that you're immediately going to leave, though, and drop a defense around a Fire Giant for. And there's a Primal Fury on the map, but again, when both teams, Miff, have the ability to do this FG, I'm not sure you're leaving for just about anything right now.
No, the most you do is send one over, but even then, so dangerous. And the only one on either side that could essentially just solo the Fury is either ADC, maybe Nika, once he upgrades that starter item. This is concerning. Solar Scarab setting something up in the jungle. Just coiling up for that bite, but instead, nobody steps forward. This is what happens when neither team has got a significant advantage. Neither one wants to be the one to pull the trigger. Fire Giant just hovered near.
Oh, Neil roots, dashes, gets pulled, uses the Scarab's blessing on himself. Big cooldown now down, now missing from the Oni Warriors. Nearly a fatal mistake, but one that doesn't end up biting NeilMah. Deathless so far in this game, and one of the more aggressive supports. He'll go back, but now it's up to the Solar Scarabs to decide how aggressive they want to be.
Very.
Because the Scarab's Blessing, excuse me, it's gone. Quarter of the way back, but Fire Giant looked at, poked at, not committed on by the Scarabs.
Yeah, Hurry realizing that maybe he's not exactly the tankiest target.
About
Takes
a minute
whole
away.
lot of damage. You're right, 1 minute.
So around the
Oh, look at that.
26-minute mark.
It's Breastplate of Valor, actually, for NeilMah. So those ultimates will be coming
Mm-hmm.
a bit more consistently than otherwise, something we don't get to see too often. A little bit of CDR for the support. For now, neither team going to step forward. Dave, I couldn't tell you what breaks open the door here.
Hey, Miff.
It'd have to be a pick. You scared?
Are you scared?
I'm not scared.
No?
Nah.
You're not scared of what might be, what could be?
I'm going to Worlds, okay? I'm
Yeah,
gonna
so
be
am
there.
I.
And they, one of these teams won't be.
Yeah, that's why I'm scared.
It's scary stuff.
It's terrifying. The solo laner for the Scarabs. He's so scary.
Understood.
20 seconds away from NeilMah's ultimate coming back, right around that 26-minute mark. And that's an eternity here in SMITE. Or if the Scarabs somehow found an initiation, but, smart from the Oni Warriors. They're just showing enough face to slow down the Fire Giant pull, but not enough that they're suddenly going to get jumped on.
It's the Warriors with a lead. A small one,
It is.
but a lead.
But they didn't have Scarab's Blessing, which they now do have. Trebuchet on left. Again, the smallest of margins in a moment like this
Ugh.
is Trebuchet maybe taking down a tier 2 tower. Polyproc onto QvoFred. Doesn't feel too great. Crush. Melts through that shield. NeilMah gets jumped on.
Yikes!
NeilMah gets pulled again, uses beads. Not the Scarab's Blessing this time. Nika separating out the fight for the rest of his team.
Man, this is just such small margins. Snoopy has set up on this corner the entirety of this Fire Giant dance, just looking for situations like that. If you need something to open the door, a crush like that is exactly it. One more, Qvo's down to a quarter, has to head back to base, and the Solar Scarabs have got a significant opportunity to start looking towards the Fire Giant proper. We've danced for so long, Pyromancer about to respawn. Could be enough threat that the Oni Warriors want to step forward here. Just feels like the Solar Scarabs, they're so hard to push into.
Could be aggressive here for Sam. Looking for
They don't
Nika
see him.
or QvoFred. It's a double stun, and it's Nika who's got to dash
Oh,
away.
no.
Ragnarok early from Sanford Soccer. But it's also a Windfire Wheels down from QvoFred. Neither jungler's got it. That Argus could be big, though. It's forced relics from Snoopy.
They're in.
And Nika right on time with the dazzling offensive. A Wrath of Terra from Hurriwind
Sam.
disengages the fight. Sanford Soccer's melted down. Vote still lives, and Vote's got damage for the Solar Scarabs. It's a fight.
Got him.
But Netrioid on the fadeaway. Hits a 3, and the Oni Warriors just trade out at solo for jungle.
Talk about clutch. Netrioid keeps it even towards the tail end of that fight. Pyromancer finally will fall, but the Oni Warriors, had they just survived, had Nika just made his way back to base, could have TP'd in and we'd be talking about a Fire Giant, but instead, it's a reset from the Oni Warriors. The Scarabs are still here.
Oh my god, but NeilMah knows that the Solar Scarabs are on the Fire Giant, and it's a slow rotation back
Half.
from the Oni Warriors. It's down to half. Can we see a Khepri steal? Will it happen?
Oh.
No, it won't. I saw the word Scarab on my screen and nearly cried. I associated it with the Khepri, but no, the Solar Scarabs get Fire Giant on 4. And it finally breaks open after 5 minutes of dancing around FG.
Man, Trebuchet's been putting in work quietly on the other side. Good eyes, Doug. Drops that Phoenix low. Unfortunately for the Oni Warriors, I don't think they're going to be able to optimize on it. Instead, surely not. The situation isn't this desperate. Hide in the jungle? Take the fight?
Oh, but Sam's got bubble. It's
Who
gotta be
walks up
awkward.
first? It can't be Sam.
Sam's gonna walk in. Can they pop the bubble?
I think he
with-
saw him. I think he saw him.
I was wondering if they could pop the bubble with an ability they don't care about, and then somehow time it. But Sam does spot it out, and the Oni Warriors will scatter in the wind. Left side Phoenix down to half HP. Allow me to recontextualize this for you, Miff.
Please do.
We're in game 4.
Yep.
Oni Warriors took a 2-0 lead in this set.
Yep.
And this is a set that's winner take all. Loser goes home. Either you're going to Worlds or your year is done. And in game 3, the Scarabs roar back. And now here in a game 4, a must-win game 4, I might add. The Solar Scarabs have finally broken this deadlock and gotten Fire Giant on everyone but Sam for Soccer. Now, the gold lead remains stable for the Oni Warriors, still about 1,000. The buff is non-actual gold lead counting, but it feels better in a team fight. This last tower might drop, but I bring that up to say Oni Warriors not fighting for their world's lives just yet. But if you go into a game 5 after 2 straight wins from the Solar Scarabs, you're fighting back something fierce. And I imagine you're still feeling like you've got something to say on this defense given the state of the map.
Keep your eyes on Sam for Soccer. He'll be acting as solo agent. I think smart to split up the map. This time around, though, QvoFred should be able to take that 1v1 if the opportunity should arise. I'm keeping my eyes on relic timers. Beads and Aegis just now coming back up for Snoopy and Netrioid. Could be the go button for the Solar Scarabs. Fight your way in. Keep your eyes on Fred as well. He's completely separated himself from the core of his team.
Whoa, Snoopy took a lot of damage. It's the Royal Assault, Myth, and the Crush that have been trading damage back and forth. Decent minion wave building up on left, but the Solar Scarabs find themselves on the entire opposite side of the map. Junglers 1v1ing over in mid. QvoFred holding his own for now. It's a pull from Hurriwind that's caught NeilMah out a couple of times. He's got beads and Scarab's Blessing, though, on the other side. Hurriwind walks forward. His bubble gets popped.
It's a lot of damage.
Pull, no good. Takes a little poke from Vote and Dardez. Sam for Soccer will walk his way forward in mid. Gets a stun onto QvoFred. Lets his roar be heard. And Qvo trades out the bubble on the jungler on the flip side. 1 minute left on the FG buff.
This Fire Giant hasn't been able to even poke in damage to the Tier 2 tower just yet.
We could hurry.
But the Solar Scarabs
He is.
should be able to move in there.
Hurry is talking with hands and pleading his team to follow his calls. He's rooted in place now.
Tower's going.
Scary D gets polymorphed. The last bit of damage should find its way into this tower as Sam for Soccer going to go up and over the wall. He has Blink.
It's dangerous.
And Leap. Scary D took half of his health and damage. And that might be the last action we see on this Fire Giant buff with 30 seconds left. And now the gold lead, it's swung, but only 1,000 in the other direction. And at this point in the game, yes, maybe completed items. That's really what you're looking at. Everyone outside of support's at level 20. And even then, it's just a 1 level difference. Now QvoFred pleading with his team. There's a lot of hand talking going on in the player booths right now.
They're passionate.
I mean, when you are on a margin this thin in a game where the pressure is this high, and you feel like you've got an idea on exactly what you need to do to end this game, you got to make your voice heard, and that's when the passion, you're right, Miff, rolls through. Remember, last Fire Giant dance was about 5 minutes. A bubble here, an ultimate there. Those were the difference makers. And we might be steamrolling towards the same exact thing. No big map state swings. Open Phoenixes on different sides of the base, but no fire minions walking in just yet. It's a Gold Fury. Who cares about that right now over on left? It's going to come down to who gets picked and who does the picking here at the 33-minute mark.
It's the Solar Scarabs in first.
Miff,
Should
I
be
want you
able
to say it
establish
for
this
me
one
just
themselves.
once.
What do you want?
I want you to tell me how you're feeling, and I want it to be scared.
I'm scared.
Thank you, and that sounded scared.
All right. Let's talk about game state, Dave.
Please.
Every relic available to both of these teams. Power spikes hit for the majority of key components. In particular, Snoopy sitting at full build could really just one-shot just about anybody. Hurriwind making sure the Oni Warriors stay honest. That pull could have been the end of the game. Just one pick on either side could really switch things up. But look at the itemization from Dardez. Book of the Dead to close out the build. He's got HP shields in the kit. He's got a bubble buddy in the kit. He's always got an ally nearby, and now he's got a secondary HP shield should he fall low. If the Solar Scarabs aren't making note of that,
And an Aegis.
could be caught
And a
off
Scarab's
guard.
Blessing.
Could be caught off guard by how much survivability this Hera really does have. But once more, Snoopy has
Enhanced Fire
assumed
Giant.
the position. This is his corner right here. Anybody who walks up eats a crush, except for Neil, who somehow has avoided it every time.
Neil's bubble is popped, though. Oh, here we go, and it's Nika brawling out with Scary D. Argus chasing down the backline of the Scarabs. Oh, no! Scary D's in the bat out of hell, and he's got to get out of hell now
They're
because the Oni
folding.
Warriors have got damage in spades. Sam for Soccer is low as well, and the Oni Warriors in a much better health state still have a Scarab's Blessing. Snipes are up from Netrioid. They'll hit Dardez. They hit hard, but they're only hitting the shield.
And Dardez sustains through all of it. Oni Warriors reset the fire. It's all about finding that positioning, but the longer the fight goes, Dave, the more it favors the Solar Scarabs. They've got healing. Hurriwind should be able to resustain his team. Fire Giant pulled.
By the Scarabs?
And it's going slow.
By the Scarabs, are they baiting in the Oni Warriors? They might be. Sanford Soccer's been bursted. But that's by Dardez. Hasn't been killed. Oh, and Scarab's Blessing. It's on QvoFred. Big cooldown. Gone from the Oni Warriors. First forced by Sanford Soccer. He is playing with fire, jumping in like that. But all 10 live yet again, and the enhanced Fire Giant awaits here in Game 4.
The instinct from NeilMah knows for a fact QvoFred doesn't have beads, knows for a fact that Scarab's Blessing is required, won't leave it up to the kill threshold instead. Decides to use it just for the cleanse. Sanford Soccer able to keep this knife's edge sharp, razor sharp, between these two teams, walking the tightrope between Worlds and a Game 5. The Oni Warriors, they haven't had an opportunity to reset. QvoFred playing with low mana here. If the fight goes long, and these Fire Giants have gone long, we could be looking at an Naja. No meditation on either side means this is what you're working with. Only difference is, seems to me the Oni Warriors playing with a bit of confidence, starting to step forward. Neither team, you can't pull it if you're the Oni Warriors. You can't pull it if you're the Solar Scarabs. It's who's getting a pick and who's getting it first. Breastplate of Valor, starting to show its value for NeilMah. That Scarab's Blessing nearly back up.
Oni Warriors do pull it. I was going to ask, eventually you got to break this, and one of the junglers, somebody's got to take a different route and try to catch the opposing team off guard. Who is that going to be? Is it going to be Sanford Soccer rotating all the way through the jungle? Maybe QvoFred finds a roundabout path, but there's such good ward coverage from the Scarabs. The only opportunity is really around the backside of the Fire Giant pit. And so nobody from the Oni Warriors, whether it be right up the middle or around through the left, are going to be able to sneak through unless you somehow make your way through the lane. Now, Nika has teleport. Has not mattered yet, but if Nika plays a bit more aggressively, is able to pull a cooldown, needs to go reset, he'll be able to get back into the fight faster. Could be used to force a hand on a split push later on, but you want to be here with your team right now. Plenty of sustain for both squads as well, that we've seen top off some of those health bars when a Stray Crush or a Royal Assault have connected with the opposing squads. NeilMah steps forward, has Bubble. Fire Giant pulled now by the Oni Warriors. Is it a true pull or just testing the reaction time of the Scarab? Scary D, he's been sashed. Royal Assault has put him down to a 3rd HP, and QvoFred looking for the follow-up. A couple bubbles off of the Solar Scarab. Sanford Soccer is behind the Fire Giant pit. Netrioid takes the full brunt of Argus. Snoopy takes the full brunt of the Oni Warriors, and now a dazzling offensive is in. Onto the stun, QvoFred deletes Snoopy. Nika on a double. Column 1 minute death timers. Oni Warriors pick off 3.
But there's still 2 standing. Sanford Soccer access to the ultimate, but you cannot defend this Fire Giant. Step up and die, lose the game. Solar Scarabs, they're willing to try.
Magic! No, Oni Warriors get the FG. Is this now a game-ending roll of the dice? Vote might end the game on a killing spree. Vote might end the year of the Solar Scarabs on a killing spree. It's been ridiculous here in Game 4. Is that the last turn we've got?
QvoFred just does so much in the last team fight, needs to keep it up here. Solar Scarabs, you're so far off the respawn. The Oni Warriors, they're healthy and they're strong.
Mifflin, that might just be it. From the SPL play-ins to the SWC group stages, the Oni Warriors have had it all to do, and they're going back to Worlds.
A congratulatory hug for the Oni Warriors in the booth, and a well-earned just ticket to the world stage. That is absolutely ridiculous. These two teams have been playing with laser focus for what was a combined 15, maybe 20 minutes dancing around that Fire Giant, all to be decided in what really boils down to a less than 15-second team fight where the Oni Warriors and QvoFred in particular really steps up. Those sashes connect on priority targets, the separation from Nika, all of them. This is a win devised by all 6 of the players in the booth now with Coach Chuck.
Neil was making me nervous, man. He kept walking forward. Thank
Stop
God
walking forward.
Thank God he had that bubble, because he kept getting popped, and there were a couple of times, that's a big difference, I think, towards the end of this game, was Neil scurrying forward, and once he had the bubble and had beads, he wasn't getting pulled and Wrath of Terra as much. And so big differences down the stretch. Obviously, not the happiest of faces in the Solar Scarabs booth. You know, that is a team that has fought all year long, Myth. They have gone through
The hand they've been dealt as well,
Right.
and had to continually
players,
deal with.
players leaving their roster, not necessarily by their own choice, and they've put together different orientations of that team. Believed in themselves, I'm sure, that they could qualify to Worlds through this weekend, but turning everything around on such short notice was always going to be tough for this squad. I think they should be proud, though, of some of the fight that they put up here, nearly get us to a game number 5. I prefer to shine a light on the happiness, though. It makes me too sad to think about the Solar Scarabs. We're happy for the Oni Warriors, though, who have fought their own adversity in so many qualifying events throughout this year. And NeilMah and the rest of that squad headed back to Worlds. That's it for Myth and I, and the desk will break it down.
It's been a tough year for the Oni Warriors to find some success and matchups where they need it, but they finally do it today to be your final team to qualify to the SWC. And Trelly, this is a team that not only through this year have they gone through the trials and the tribulations. Remember, this is the only team in the SPL over the course of the 2 years of this franchise that have not made a single roster change throughout their entire time. This is a 2-year culmination building up for this team to now finally make it to the SMITE World Championship, especially after the rocky start they had at the beginning of this year, where it was even a question of, is this team even going to make it into the SMITE Pro League at this point? They said, yes, we deserve to be here, and now deserve to be at the SMITE World Championships.
A fantastic set played there by the Oni Warriors. I think the whole team definitely deserves a round of applause. You got to zone in on QvoFred's plays there at the very end. A fantastic, I mean, he was playing like he was possessed at some points. Dave was highlighting it on the cast. At one point just ate the Scylla ult and then still decided to go in anyways. Those are the kind of plays you got to make when you want to make it to the SMITE World Championships, and they did. It was just a great set played by the Oni Warriors.
One player that really stood out to me in this last game was Nika from the solo lane. And the good news is we get to talk to Nika standing by for our post-game interview with Dave.
Oh, they're working on it.
Oh. Okay, I don't know if you can hear, but
Can you hear me through that headset? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
we can hear. I don't know if our mics are being picked up right now.
Should
or
I
not,
be
but
Nika and you be Dave?
We're seeing if we can get a replacement over here for these guys. Seems our handheld has deceased. Oh, they're doing a rock paper scissors. Oh. Okay, so rock, paper, scissors. They've been going even the whole way through. Even onto the rock through there, it's still going. That's 6 ties in a row, Charlie. This is it
for all the marbles.
of the mental of the team. Oh,
That's why he's going to Worlds, baby! Let's go!
That's why he's a Worlds contender right there, Dave. Oh, the suspenders are coming off. It's round 2. It's a best. Hey, this is a best of 5, just like your last day. You got to keep going. That's 1.
I don't think... Oh, we got it.
Okay. Maybe
Testing.
There it is.
Testing.
Oh, we hear you.
Do you hear me?
We hear
Are we
you.
good? Okay. All right. Beating me in rock, paper, scissors. That set.
Bigger than that set for sure.
That one. All right. We can regroup ourselves. Nika, I talked about this on the cast a little bit. You start the year in an SPL qualifier tournament, right? It's a stressful beginning to your year. You had some highs and lows throughout the year. Was it a similar feeling this weekend? Last chance, either you go on, you go home. Describe kind of the parallels between the beginning and now this weekend.
I think the beginning was, personally, it was less stressful because I was like very sure that we'd make it, but like if we didn't make Worlds 2 years in a row, it would just feel like it was wasted, you know? Right. So it was very, like, I'm emotional. Like, that was crazy.
Look, we're so proud of you guys. Such a fun team to watch. I'm sure as spectators that Game 4 was more fun than it was as a player. You danced for 20 uninterrupted minutes around FG. What's the communication like in a moment like that?
It was just a lot, because they had like the Sia passive, so it was like play very carefully out our vision, like Scylla's off the FG, don't get poked, and just look for one opportunity for Dardez to get like a big August, meet the dash in. We had like 3 or 4 like fights where we like nearly got it, but that final one, he just catches the Rama, I get him at the end, and like seriously, like that was like the most intense like final game I've ever been in, I think. Like that feels amazing.
And look, now you guys, you go to Worlds. It's just around the corner next weekend. Get to feel the crowd behind you once again. Describe for me, if you will, what's that like, playing in front of a crowd and what it means to you to get back to Worlds.
I mean, it's everything. It's what we play for. It's what we cast for. Like everything. Like nothing beats that. And like, I'm sure we can pull off many special moments like that, and to have a crowd behind you, like cheering you on, or even rooting against you, like something to play into or against. Like nothing beats that as a player, and I'm pretty sure every other player can agree.
What's the limit here for this Oni Warriors team? You think you guys got what it takes to go on a run?
Of course. I've said it for 2 years straight. That's why I stayed with this team when I could have swapped. That's why we stayed together when we could have broke up. Like, it's just being ready and fucking playing well. 1 day, 3 days. We have to play at our highest level, and we got it. Sure, we slipped against Mambo, other worlds, whatever. Who cares? We got there. Now we just got to focus on the actual worlds, and we can go all the way if we play to our level.
Nika, proud of you, buddy. Congrats. We'll see you at Worlds next weekend. That's been Nika. Back to the desk.
And Nika with the Oni Warriors. Emotional, as I imagine a lot of the players on that team are. I mean, you heard it there. If this is a team that, for all the time that they spent together, all the build-up they had back in Season 8, the run that they had at the start of this year to get back into the SPL, and now building up to this, if this is a team that didn't make Worlds for the second year in a row, would be devastating for these guys out there. So happy for these guys, the whole team excited to be able to finally make it to the world stage as a group.
No doubt, and I think everyone's proud of the Solar Scarabs, right? This is a team that was also dealt some bad hands throughout the entirety of this season. A lot of roster changes. The final iteration of this team, I think, has made leaps and bounds since we first saw them, and putting up a fantastic performance to send the Oni Warriors off to the SMITE World Championships. They also deserve some round of applause. I think put in a lot of work, and it really showed. This was a fantastic set. Could have went either way, and that's all you could ask for as a fan of this game.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're definitely right to stress and highlight the fact that the Solar Scarabs, I mean, this is a roster that's been together for, what, 2 months, maybe at that, and have only gotten to play in competitive matches for about a week or two's worth of time to that regard. So this is a roster that really hasn't had as much time to build as some of the others. I would love to see this iteration of the Solar Scarabs roster 2-3 months down the road from now. We're looking in year 10 of SMITE in the 10th season of the SPL. I can only imagine what this team's capabilities are by that point, because even with just this short time they've had together, the Solar Scarabs looked great in all their sets that they've been able to play out there with the constant changes that they've had to make throughout the season. It's been rough for them. But for the Oni Warriors, a big win for these guys. They finally get to make it to the world stage together to compete with some of their other fellow SPL teams and a couple of the SCC squads out there. Remember, 2 EU SCC teams made it through this one. So we're going to have, I think for the first time ever, Trelly, 2 amateur league teams making it to the SMITE World Championship, where in years of past, we'd be lucky if we even saw one make it there.
I mean, that's going to be incredible, seeing them all live on the SWC World stage. I got to highlight once again, fantastic performance from the Oni Warriors. Dardez doing almost 40,000 damage, double just about anyone else. And it seemed like a lot of these carries were popping off. When Worlds is on the line and Dardez pulls out Hera, you know he's full and confident, and he really did have a fantastic performance. You heard Nika there on the interview. A lot of their game plan there relied on hitting a massive Argus, and he was able to find it.
Yeah, they were able to find some great picks throughout that one. Even Nika himself finding a couple of good picks throughout the entirety of this set. But let's take a look at the brackets one final time so you can see how the last 4 days have culminated into our 4 teams that are qualifying to the SMITE World Championship from Group B, Hex Mambo, and now Oni Warriors. After getting swept back by the Hex Mambo just yesterday, Oni Warriors able to make the bounce back in a 3-1 win over the Solar Scarabs, and an impressive run by Hex Mambo, not only taking down Solar Scarabs 2-1, but the Warriors yesterday 3-1 to be the first team in this group to have qualified up. Our 1 EU SCC and 1 SPL team from Group B. From Group A, not quite the same level of story from some of the teams out there, but still an SCC and an SPL team. Tartarus Titans made it look fairly clean throughout theirs. A 2-0 over the Highland Ravens to start the week, and then a 3-1 over the Eldritch Hounds made them the first team to qualify. And then the Ravens, after their loss, found a 2-0 over the Valkyries, and then a dominant 3-0 performance over the NASCC Eldritch Hounds, who were undefeated against an SCC team coming into this event. And what a way for the Highland Ravens to deliver their first loss to them in the match that mattered the most. Highland Ravens, Tartarus Titans, Hex Mambo, and Oni Warriors now your 4 teams from this group to qualify to the SWC.
My brain is a bit like fried at this point, and we all of our mind power now goes to Worlds, and it's crazy that we're even at this point. We've been talking about this for so long now, and for it to finally come into fruition, it's just incredible.
And Trelly, this was part 4 of 5 of the road to Worlds, and now the only step that's left is the World Championships itself. It started all the way back in November with the Phase 3 playoffs. We qualified our 4 teams from there. That was the Kings, the Leviathans, the Dragons, and the Bolts who made it from that point. Then in our Road to Worlds EU and NASCC matchups, we brought our 4 SCC teams that we got to see this weekend, 2 from NA, 2 from EU. And then this week, just now finishing up January 5th through 8th of our group stage, we have now determined our final 4 teams who are making it to the SMITE World Championships. That all kicks off on Friday, January 13th, 5 days from now.
This Friday?
Yes, this Friday, sir. Less than a week away. The SMITE World Championships live at the Esports Arena in Arlington, Texas. We will have 8 of the best teams in the world competing for the crown and competing to lift Thor's hammer for Season 9.
I mean, we've been saying it at the end of every single broadcast for like 2 months. And when you said Friday, instead of next Friday, like Friday, it really did put it into perspective. It's going to be so exciting. I hope you guys are hyped up because I certainly am.
It's going to be a tremendous weekend of SMITE action out there. Again, the best teams that our leagues have to offer, 6 SPL, 2 EU SCT teams, have made the journey to the SMITE World Championships. But the fun of today isn't over just yet, Charlie. There's still a little bit more to go. Taking place in just a few moments after this broadcast goes through, we're going to have an entire drafting show. We're bringing the captains of the 4 teams that have already qualified. They're going to be determining which teams they want to compete up against in seeding order. So the Camelot Kings will get their first pick at the 4 teams who have made it this weekend. The Leviathans get the chance of the next 3, and then the Dragons get a pick from the bottom 2, and then, well, unfortunately for the Bolts, they're kind of stuck over at that point. But that's going to be coming up in just a few minutes, so make sure that you stick around so you can see how the draft show goes. That's going to be up in just a few minutes right after this break.